Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and this is the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock. It is Wednesday the 8th of April and we're all still here. Some of you, you may have gone to bed last night thinking, what's going to happen in the morning? Are we going to wake up and there's going to be Armageddon in the Middle East? I think I'm not in the right place, am I? I'm going to move. I'm going to go. I was going to move over. Look, there you see. Look at that. Because Pooch has actually used a protractor and a compass to put this all together so that my head has to be exactly where it is now. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But as you can see, from the two clocks behind me, the international clock and the clock that tells you exactly what time it is in London, 7 o'clock and 42 seconds. Over here, of course, the Mike Graham Show sign. So as you can see, I am perfectly balanced between the two. If I go that way, it doesn't look right. If I go that way, it doesn't look right either. So I stay exactly where I'm supposed to stay. And he's even put a little mark here so that I make sure that I'm sitting at it, and I managed to get it wrong. Because it's very exciting times, right? Because we didn't wake up to Armageddon. We didn't wake up to global thermonuclear war. We didn't wake up to the end of a civilization. Instead, what we woke up to is exactly what I said we'd wake up to, which was nothing at all. Because Donald Trump has once again pulled off a blinder. He has managed to get a ceasefire out of the Iranians, who were threatening all sorts of terrible, terrible retribution on all sorts of things in the Gulf states. If he blew up their bridges, they were going to blow up some other bridges. If, in fact, the end of civilization was going to come for them, they were not going to go quietly. I keep getting all these messages about Edward Hughes. He's not the story at the moment. I'm sorry. We'll talk about him later. We're talking about, the world's peace scenario, right? But I've got something to tell you, because yesterday, right, all of the ridiculousness that was going on in the media, in the mass media, as it used to be called, in the mainstream media, as I now call it, I was getting messages from people last night saying, what are you doing? What are you preparing? Have you got some stocks of jam and, beans and spaghetti and toilet paper, just in case World War III kicks off? And I said, I don't think it is going to kick off. I just don't think it is. Donald Trump and the Easter Bunny together are a formidable force. There's no question about that. But if you saw some of the headlines last night, and I'm going to single out one in particular from the Daily Mirror, but if you can show us all of these are all the headlines from last night, right? Because this was before the ceasefire was announced. The ceasefire was announced with about 90 minutes to go, around about sort of 11:30, 11:45 last night, right? The Daily Mail, the night the world held its breath and prayed, right? Metro, we're in a world of deep trouble. The National, Scottish paper, absolute rubbish. They'd be better off just, stapling it to the back of a donkey and sending it around to a few people to read. It's genocide, plain and simple. This is the Scottish National Party saying that any attack on the civilization of Iran is genocide. You got The Guardian, outrage and fear as Trump warns whole civilizations will die in Iran. End of the world as we know it on the Daily Star. Orange man baby tantrum. Whole civilization will die. I mean, is there anyone in Fleet Street anymore that's got a brain? Is there anyone left who can actually decipher what the news is and who can actually predict what is more likely to happen than what is less likely to happen? I find it really quite embarrassing, right? So if you look at the Daily Mirror in particular, and I'm going to single it out because the Daily Mirror for me is a real shadow of its former self. I used to work for them, and so I know what I'm talking about. But they put out the most ridiculous front page I think I've seen in many a year, and they've done quite a few. Here it is. Where are we? Oh yeah, here it is. They do a big picture of the moon, right? Which is of course taken by the wokists on Artemis 2, who are all so busy hugging each other they forgot to, go to the toilet. An extraordinary glimpse of Earth from the Orion spacecraft after a journey that represents the very best of humanity, they say. Yet our precious home continues to be torn apart by the worst of it. And as a maniac in the White House threatens to obliterate a whole civilization, the world holds its breath. Yeah, well, that turned out to be complete and utter bollocks, didn't it? So well done, you complete numpties at the Daily Mirror. I don't think there's one journalist left there, because anybody with half a brain could have told you that, of course, there's not going to be an end of civilization. Of course, President Trump is negotiating. That's what he does. Cindy there saying, congratulations to President Trump. Can I just say that one again? Hats off to President Trump. I never doubted he would get a deal done. He's got a deal done. I was listening to a guy called Joel Rubin this morning, who's actually quite a sensible commentator, but he was talking to Times Radio. And the Times Radio people were, of course, totally, utterly incredulous that this could have been anything done in lieu of some kind of negotiation, where Donald Trump actually said things which brought the Iranians to the table and scared them enough to make sure that they would say, all right, you can put your boats back through the Straits of Hormuz. You can do that because we will have a ceasefire for 2 weeks. Now, it's not over. It's not an uncomplicated story, of course. But the idea that all of these kind of idiots in the media were running around trying to blame Donald Trump for starting World War III and ending a civilization. Pat says, did anyone really think Trump would blow up a whole civilization? Well, yeah. Everybody in the media apparently thought that. Because they hate him so much that they can't bring themselves to believe that he's actually quite good at negotiating. He's actually quite clever. Anyway, this guy, Joel Rubin, actually said the words this morning on Times Radio. It could well be that Donald Trump's crazy words actually brought the Iranians to the table. Huh? Really? Do you think? Do you think that's why he said it? Do you think that that might have been what was in his mind? Do you think that that might have been what he wanted to do? You complete numpties? And the Times Radio people are all very clever. They've got a guy doing the early breakfast show who's an actor. He's not even a journalist, but he sounds good. His name's Tom, and he speaks very, very well. It's very posh. And so, of course, you think he must be very, very clever because, of course, he hates Donald Trump, which we all do because he's a ghastly, ghastly man, isn't he? And those poor Iranians and their civilization. Imagine if he's going to wipe them out. He's going to open some McDonald's outlets and make them drink Coca-Cola. How awful. Ghastly man. Do away with him immediately. I mean, seriously? We'll be talking about this all morning this morning because I'm sick to death of this Trump derangement syndrome, which is now so endemic in the entire media in this country that they can't even see the wood for the trees. Let's talk to Stephen Barrett, our favourite barrister, because I'm sure he'll agree with me. Stephen, sorry about the slightly extended rant there, but I'm sick to death of these people. I mean, did they really think that what Donald Trump said was not meant for the purposes of a negotiation? How can they not understand that?
I don't think they understand terribly much, to be honest.
No.
And I think it's been going on, for me, with the scales fell from my eyes with the referendum on Brexit.
Yes.
Upon which I've never taken a position because I've always said that there were arguments either way.
Yeah.
Which I think that there were, and I think most intelligent people could see that there were arguments either way.
Right.
But with the result, I don't know what to call them, Mike. We're going to need a term for these people, but because they're not the elite and they're not intelligent, but they seem to be self-proclaiming that. And
they want everyone to think they're the elite, don't they?
They do, and they suffer from a disease that I think is particularly bad in humans, Mike, which is wanting to be thought clever. I don't think any of us should ever want other people to think that we're clever. I don't think that's a very healthy position for you to be in.
No.
The minute that you go down that route, and that's your sort of main motivation in the day, I think you've probably got a bit lost. What we should probably try and do is work out rational positions and try and make sure that the positions that we take and the policy choices that we make and how we live our lives and how we want to approach the world is rational and grounded in logic and reason. That's fine. But we shouldn't want anybody or need anybody to think of us as intelligent. It really shouldn't
intelligent people, in my experience, intelligent people don't go around telling everyone how intelligent they are. Whereas, the sort of what I call the Times Radio clique put out adverts in which they describe Hugo Rifkind as, biting, incisive and intelligent and witty. And you go, if you've got to put that on an advert, he's not any of those things, actually, is he?
No. If you have to pay to say something, then it's probably false. But also, I mean, I get your frustration at this. There have been just acceptable ideas. I call it regime think. That if you recite these mantras, you will be accepted in British life and you will be treated as though you are something very terribly impressive. And all you have to do is constantly recite these mantras. And one of them, which is particularly frustrating if you do actually like paying attention to stuff, is that Donald Trump is somehow wrong.
Yeah.
And somehow just not acceptable.
Always.
That's
but also always wrong in every single aspect. They cannot bring themselves to congratulate him for doing anything right. They cannot bring themselves to praise him in any way. All they can do is question him. And even when he does do something which is universally accepted, you would have thought to be down to his cleverness and his acuity or whatever, they can't accept it. They can't give him the credit for it.
No, and they have to sort of pretend that he's evil. So you end up with ridiculous scenes where he's sort of, playing in the White House garden with 5-year-olds, and they have to pretend that he's somehow a nasty man. It's like this really just doesn't stack up. Okay, just on the basis analysis of evidence, your position doesn't work. He's obviously quite a sweet man. His youngest boy, Barron Trump, did something absolutely remarkable and brilliant when he was Zooming or Skyping or whatever, one of his a friend, and she was being assaulted by her partner, and he reported it immediately to the police and then gave evidence, and the man got convicted. That's just moral decency. That's just goodness. And if somebody raises a boy to do that, he's a young man. I shouldn't be rude to him, but if somebody raises a young man to do that, then they're obviously a good father. So again, I don't see how the evidence supports your conclusion. But they seem to live in evidence-free worlds. They don't seem to require evidence. All they require is to recite the mantra. And what's frustrating, I suspect what's behind your frustration, Mike, is that it's very, very dull. It's just dull. The minute that they become a regime thinker, we know what they think about everything. We know that they've accepted the party line on everything.
Yes.
We almost don't need them to talk anymore. It's like you can now stop talking because we know all of your opinions. You're not going to say anything interesting. You're not going to say anything innovative or new. All you're going to do is hold the party line. And this becomes a real replacement for thinking. It's deeply anti-intellectual. So the fact that they want to be thought of as clever is just very, very frustrating, because that's the complete opposite of what intellectual people do. Intellectual people challenge themselves, question themselves, hold differing opinions, change their mind. Goodness forbid.
Yeah.
But the idea that these people are interesting in any way is complete madness, which is why, I'm afraid, unlike you, I don't listen to Times Radio, and I don't listen to Radio 4 anymore. I just there's nothing interesting it's going to say.
We were saying this morning that we're going to be banging this drum today, and also for quite a long time. This is why the success of what's called independent media, whether it's your Substack, whether it's my show, whether it's what other people access now, because they need to see the truth from a position where it's actually unvarnished. I will not always do things that people like. Yesterday we had Steve Baker on, who's a former member of the Boris Johnson government. He was a Northern Ireland minister, and he spent about 15 minutes waxing lyrical about how hard it was to be an MP. And of course, people were going, this guy's an absolute maniac. How dare he? But they listened to him. And, it wasn't something they wanted to hear, but it was educational because, yes, he wasn't making a case that was in any way, in my view, defensible. But, it's interesting to hear the point of view of people who come at things from a different place. And so, therefore, that's what we do. Whereas in no place in the mainstream media now do you get that. All you get is this kind of, we've got a clip which we'll play later probably on in the show. Zia Yusuf was on Good Morning Britain. I don't know why they bothered going on there. And Charlotte, what's her face, who's a very nice looking young woman but has got the brains of a pea, literally, said to him, well, your new policy in which you would refuse visas to people who are coming to Britain from countries who are seeking reparations for slavery would have meant that your parents couldn't have come here from Sri Lanka. And you kind of go, well, that's a bit of a weird assumption to make, because one, they came here many, many decades ago when this wasn't an argument. And what are you saying? Are you saying that your logical conclusion now is that his parents would have to be sent home? No, that's not what Reform was saying. And so they make these ludicrous points to sort of score on the scoreboard, we got him on that. But it's, as you say, anti-intellectual.
Yeah, it's completely. It's sort of, because you see a lot of this on Twitter, Mike, and you put out a point that people don't like, and then they'll basically reply with something like, "So you're saying that we should murder babies?"
Yes.
It's probably the apex of this is that Kathy what's-her-face interview with Jordan Peterson.
Yes, Kathy Newman.
Where she just completely misinterpreted everything he said.
Right.
And I don't know whether these people are doing it deliberately. I don't know whether they're just incredibly stupid. But it doesn't seem to matter either way. Either way, they're not very useful. They're not honest actors. We can have people, you and I probably do agree on quite a lot of things. But we've also got people that we're friendly with who we disagree with,
Yeah.
and we can have interesting conversations and arguments with them. I mean, I would have liked to have had the argument with Steve Baker that actually being an MP is quite an honour,
Yes.
and probably quite a cushy job compared to
Right.
something like my granddad's job, which was
Right.
back in the day as
I mean,
a doctor.
bizarrely,
in
he
Liverpool.
also made that argument at the same time. It was kind of like,
Right.
you know, yes, it's a privilege, but also it's quite hard, you know.
Right. Okay. Well, but and I do that with great civility. I wouldn't be nasty to him. I'm sure he's a decent fellow. You know, we can argue and disagree in an interesting way. But these people in our society who just completely misinterpret what you have said,
Yes.
they're a real problem because you can't argue with them. You can't discuss anything with them. They're just a complete waste of time. I spend most of my life on Twitter blocking them, but they are an endless, and they are a pandemic, Mike.
There is
Because
this endless stream of them, and you're absolutely right, because whenever I read a sentence that begins with, so what you're saying is, you just immediately want to disregard it, because you know that it's going to be complete and utter nonsense.
Yes, it is. I mean, and personally for Mike, one that I immediately know I'm going to block the person is if it begins, as a barrister, surely you, and it's just like, oh, this is going to be complete controlling nonsense. But, you know, we cannot have, it's like this issue over war crimes. America is not committing war crimes. So anybody who goes around saying that America is committing war crimes is just saying complete nonsense.
Well,
and
you tweeted, I think you tweeted yesterday about an MP who was not only alleging war crimes were about to be committed by Donald Trump in the wiping out of a civilization, but that he was actually urging members of our own armed forces not to follow orders in order so that they would not be prosecuted in the future. Unbelievable, treasonous stuff, isn't it?
Well, he in particular needs to take a great deal of care, because I discovered from an American lawyer that there is actually a specific crime in America of trying to disincentivize their troops.
Right.
And the minute America wakes up and takes notice of these people, I think a lot of them are going to be in an awful lot of trouble.
Yeah.
It's a bit like when the Labour Party sent people over to campaign in the American election, which I'm pretty sure is a crime in America. And as soon as the Americans wake up and notice these people, I think they're going to be in an awful lot of trouble, because what's this, and this is the great tragedy of regime think. Because in our current civilization, if you recite regime think, you not only face no consequences, you get rewards, unearned rewards. But that's not sustainable forever. And just reciting regime think might actually get you into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And that MP in particular really needs to consider, you know, how he communicates and what he says, because, and this is why I'm not a free speech absolutist and never have been, because you do actually need rules. You can't have people going around encouraging your soldiers not to fight in a war. You do actually need to prosecute Lord Haw if he or she arises again. You actually need to have treason laws. You need to have rules in society that people can't just behave how they want to because that's how they feel.
Yes.
In many ways, Mike, we need to return to a world in which grown-ups regulate their emotions. And we've lost this idea that even to be a grown-up, which is what when I was a child, that was the guiding light. Children couldn't regulate their emotions, so were controlled by rules and told off and disciplined and what have you. Adults controlled their emotions. They controlled how they behaved. They didn't behave in completely mad ways, and they were decent members of society. And we really need to get that back, because what on earth does a British MP think he's doing? Tweeting, trying to disincentivize American soldiers who are fighting a perfectly legal and legitimate war. But also, I mean, it's like the lie that there was a genocide in Gaza. They just make things up, and then they use those made up things as an excuse to get very, very emotional. And then they think, well, because I'm very, very emotional, I can do whatever I like. But that's the modus operandi, Mike, of every bully in history.
Well, exactly.
That was the modus operandi of Hitler. Hitler believed he was the victim.
Yeah, well, wait until you see what John Swinney said yesterday. He's on the front page of The National, which is a newspaper that has a lower circulation than my cholesterol count. And it says, John Swinney denounces horrific a civilization will die threat from Donald Trump. And the headline says, it's genocide, plain and simple. Well, one, it hasn't happened, right? So it's actually technically not anything. It certainly isn't genocide because it hasn't happened. Three, because it didn't happen. It couldn't possibly be, and so you go, what is wrong with you people? And you're absolutely right. This all began, with Diana's death, as far as I'm concerned, when you started to see people travelling hundreds of miles to lay some flowers on this kind of mass, mourning scene outside Kensington Palace. And Pooch and I were talking about this yesterday, that it's even now infected the astronauts going off into space, the Artemis crew, who are going around hugging each other and making little heart-shaped, sounds, and people going, this is the best of humanity, because, it's not just men going up into space, those horrible, ghastly misogynists from Apollo 13, who might have been risking their lives, but basically weren't very nice people. But now we've got lovely people, and they're seeing the world in a completely different place, and they call it Mother Earth, and they hug each other a lot. It's like, just stop, please.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, Mike, and I think adults need to go back to regulating their emotions and behaving in certain ways. I think the latter Roman Republic fell into this in a way, and what happened when it got corrected was that Augustus came in with all sorts of morality rules, basically. And he knew that the best way to regulate society wasn't necessarily to have a load of laws for everybody, but to actually go to the top, go to the nobles and demand that they behave in a certain way, regulate their activity, regulate their behavior. Rome at that point was in quite a bad position. So he was literally, he had adultery laws, and he brings in the idea of, you will stay with your wife and you will be monogamous. Right. You will behave yourselves. You will not do this in public. You will not do that in public. To be honest, I would have failed his tests, and he would have demanded that I cut my hair. Yeah. But I think that to have that society back is not a bad thing at all. We have gone way too far the other way. We are way too in touch with our emotions. We now let them dictate how we behave, and it's not healthy, Mike. It's just not a proper way to behave.
Worse than that, it's worse than being in touch with your emotions. It's making sure that everybody knows that you're in touch with your emotions, so that they can see that you're in touch with your emotions. It's almost performative, and when, for example, you question somebody about it. Why would you want to take your birthday off work? It was one of my pet peeves when I was at talk. People would go, "Oh, I'm not in tomorrow. It's my birthday." I'd be like, "What are you, 10? What do you mean you're not in because it's your birthday? What are you going to, what are you going to do? Come into work. Why are you not going to?" And then they'd sort of look at you like some kind of ogre. "How dare you make me work on my birthday?" As if it's some kind of, sort of slavery type instruction. It's absolutely incredible. And how dare you say that I can't feel upset? When I was there, and I know that there will be people who will disagree with me on this, but they were offering counselling sessions during the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine at News, saying, we realise this is a difficult time for you, and if you're feeling vulnerable and or worried or nervous about the war, try going and covering it, or try going and fighting in it. Then maybe you might need some counselling, but, not writing about it or seeing pictures of it. Sorry, you're a journalist. You're supposed to be able to handle it. It's like saying to a doctor, "I know you've had a hard time cutting people open today. Maybe you'd like to go and lie down in a dark room because it's a really horrible job." It's the job that you chose to do, right?
It is, Mike. And I think we need to have a much healthier relationship with emotions. And I think we need to start talking about emotions and what we're dealing with and how we're doing with all of this, because it has got out of hand. It is way too touchy-feely right now. And it's just not helpful. We also need to talk openly about narcissism and how everything isn't about us. I am not the most important person in the world, and I accept that. I'm not even the most important person in my world. I tend to put my child and my dogs before myself. Right. So it's just, that's just my little world. But we need to accept that we can't be mummy's special soldier all the time. And that we're not going to be the focus of society, and that actually we are all in this together. And we're much better off with collective outcome. I mean, because all of this just ends up in a very bad way. Otherwise, what you do is you cede adulthood. You give up the idea that you are a mature individual to be worthy of respect in our society, and you become a blithering child who needs constant indulgence. But that feels like you're gaining power, but actually, Mike, you're giving power away, because then the body who gives you the indulgence has all the control over you. And really that is much more sinister. We live in a society of people who have been made to feel that being weak is wise and will gain them advantage. But actually what they're doing is giving their power away to other people, other adults, who do not then treat them with respect. And to be honest, the first one I'd get back, Mike, is I think everybody should, oh, look, I've just broken my own rule. But I think everybody should go back to, I think I should call you Mr. Graham, and I think you should call me Mr. Barrett. I think we should get these things back.
You're absolutely right, because there's nothing more irritating to me than somebody in a shop, and I know this is going to sound terribly old-fashioned, when they go, all right, mate? Yeah. And I'm going, sorry. You know, I punched a guy in the Tesco's the other day because he was like, you get any petrol, mate? And I'm thinking, what are you calling me mate? Or it's even worse on the phone. When you get some, you know, eventually somebody to answer a phone call that you're making, to sort some ridiculous, you know, nonsensical, repetitious bill that you keep getting or something like that, and you go, and they go, all right, mate, and it's like, please don't call me mate. I'm sorry, I know it's so old-fashioned. I don't wish to be called mate by somebody I don't know. I don't mind being called mate by somebody that I do know, but that's not the same thing.
Well, I mean, we talk about this, and you framed it as old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And it's like they're just two ways of being. Human society can be desperately formal or desperately informal. And at various times in the last 10,000 years, human societies have been one or the other. One isn't old-fashioned and the other new. And I think this is the great lie of Blairism, that he framed all of his ideas as modern. Everything he was doing was modern and new, even though, I mean, it really isn't. I mean, Blairism has basically recreated the Weimar Republic. We live in a bureaucratic dictatorship. This is not a new idea. Byzantium had this hundreds of years ago, and it didn't work for them either, Mr. Blair. No. But and I don't know if you've covered this, but we now have our first female dictator in the form of the cabinet secretary, who now is apparently in charge of policy. Yes. Apparently, this unelected woman is in charge of national policy. This is how weak and pathetic Keir Starmer is. Yes. She's actually conducted a coup under him apparently with his full endorsement.
Oh yeah,
what a complete
Ms. Romeo, who used to take great pleasure in charging trips back to London to stay in nice hotels and to buy loads of clothes to the British consulate in New York. Very nice of her to do so. Let me just move on to a couple of other stories before we let you go. You've tweeted about this one. This is yet another stabbing, killing up in Primrose Hill. But we've actually got the video which somebody shot, because of course everything is now recorded on video. I think we can see it. Pooch?
What is going on? We were oh, my back! Go on, then. Yo, what's the knife? Bro, are you good?
And I mean, you said quite rightly, London is feral, because that is a feral scene, I'm afraid, and it's horrible. I used to live in Primrose Hill. My daughter sort of didn't grow up there, but we moved back from America and we lived in Primrose Hill, just down the road from where that happened, when my daughter was 2. And we used to go there on a regular basis. She loved Primrose Hill, and now that's what it's like. I mean, I can't quite believe it.
No, well, we're living through rule of law collapse, because I can put in all sorts of fancy intellectual ideas, but the simple fact is that they're basically, from the point of view of those young people, there are no rules and no repercussions.
No.
So they have descended into Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
that's where they are, and it's just that is inevitable when you live in this. When they live in a society where there are no grown-ups, where there are no rules, where the police officers only care about mums on Twitter, and they don't mind shoplifting, and they don't mind phone theft, and all of these things that happen every single day in London. I mean, another prominent figure had their telephone stolen yesterday. I mean, I've got to go in today. Will I have my telephone stolen today?
Yeah.
Will you have your telephone stolen today? What are we living in? Our society is collapsing around us. And yet it's getting delusional. It doesn't want to admit this. It wants to distract itself, indulge itself with emotions, when we have very serious, real problems, not imaginary problems.
Yeah.
That's a young man stabbed. That should not happen in our society.
Right. Who's now dead, and
right.
We've got. I saw, I think on Monday, a statistic which said that something like more than 50% of car owners in London have had their car either stolen or broken into in the past year. I'm one of them. I had my back window smashed by somebody in an NCP car park, for which I was paying £40 for the privilege of parking there, right? And I had no recourse to the law. I had not, didn't even really take anything. He just smashed the back window. And I thought, well, this is nice. And I had to, get it wrapped, get it fixed. You know, it didn't cost me a fortune, but it was just the inconvenience of it all. And as you say, you walk into London every day now wondering if you're going to be a victim of crime.
Yeah, we have the right to live under what George Washington called the benign influence of good law under a free government.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the government's now not free. It's now under the control of Antonio Romeo, or whatever she's called. And our laws are certainly not good laws, Mike. Our laws are flabby, fat, and lazy to the point where they don't really exist anymore.
No.
You know, unless you're a mum tweeting rude things on Twitter, we are basically, you know, crime free. And this is a very serious problem. It will end up in more young gentlemen stabbed. It will end up in more young lives ruined. It will end up in more violent crime, more property damage, more theft, everything going up in cost and expenses. And then disproportionate attempts to control us. So my railway station, and I might cover this when I can face them again. But they look like they've gone completely mad again and are now trying to desperately control where everybody stands inside the station. I mean, literally is this drug of control.
Yes.
It seems to have a disproportionate relationship to as rules get less and less clear. And as laws seem to be dying and be less and less enforceable, we seem to have a reaction of yet more control of anybody who's decent and well behaved. So I can guarantee that my railway station won't be trying to control anybody who looks aggressive or scary in any way, shape or form. They'll be allowed to do whatever they want. And I'm sure that railway station will not prosecute shoplifters and you know, the crime happens there every day. But decent commuters who will do as they're told will be forced to stand in stupid coloured queues for absolutely no reason.
Right.
You know, this is what we seem to have, this complete disconnect where the bad people are able to do whatever they like and are running around literally stabbing people. And the good people are subjected to completely ridiculous rules and completely over control, which is like the good people have to have an online account for everything now. You know, the good people have to have an account just to buy their shopping. You know, the good people have to have logins and passwords and have, you know, two-factor authentication of everything. But the bad people can run around stabbing people, smashing in car windows, nicking whatever they like. You know, this is just.
I know. This is one of the things I know. One of the things I never thought I would hear myself say. You know, I feel a bit sorry for Kanye West, who's now apparently been banned from coming to Britain on the grounds that he's an anti-Semite. And yet, as we speak, there will be hundreds of people arriving on our shores on small boats who are almost certainly anti-Semitic. And who are given a free hotel to stay in and possibly benefits for life in order to stay in the country.
Yeah, and I think on that one, I mean, it's a very difficult topic because I know where you would be and I am, which is I wish the government banned every anti-Semite from our shores, and I wish the government treated every anti-Semite seriously. But various other musician anti-Semites will not be treated this way, and as you say, real threats to the Jewish community, because whatever Kanye West is or isn't, he's not actually going to go and attack British Jews.
Right.
But these people who are coming by small boats are a serious threat to British Jews, to British children, to British women, probably to you know, flabby, overweight, middle-aged men like me, because you know it's not like I'm a 6'4", you know, powerhouse. I doubt that bad people look at me as much of a threat. So probably I'm at risk too. I think we are now all at risk, and we need to have a very serious conversation about how we fix our country, because it's not getting any better, and it's not going to go away if we just ignore it. So, and Antonio Romeo is not going to solve anything. Yeah. She didn't stop the boats, and she's not going to govern the country well or competently. Not that she has any right to do so, but you know, let's just be very British about this and leave that aside. She's not even going to be a very effective dictator. You know, so why are we going through this ridiculous farce? What we need is a government in place who actually knows how to govern, who is more than willing to fix our flabby and fat legal system, because 90% of the problems, Mike, are law. 90% of them. Yeah. And we need all of that to go, and that means ordinary people need to come back to the law, because it belongs to ordinary people. So all of our laws need to, as a default, we need to have as an absolute constitutional default, the idea that this law should be read by a normal non-lawyer and make sense to them.
Yes.
That should be the absolute, the absolute bedrock. And that's why, a mutual friend of ours who we both hold in deep respect is Baroness Claire Fox, because she's not a lawyer, but she spends all of her time actually reading the bills and working out what they mean. Now,
Right.
at the moment, that's a mammoth task because the bills are so badly written. I mean, there was one I was reading, Mike, that honestly, even I was just bashing my head on the table in frustration at how this thing is written. It's
Right.
deliberately written to not be understandable. And we just need to go back to the basic principle that our laws belong to us and we should be able to understand them. And that until we get back to that, this is where we will live with this absolute tyranny of the bad people, completely out of control and feral, good people massively over oppressed by ridiculous railway staff and other such instances.
Right, absolutely. And I must take you back in your memory, if you can remember it, when Keir Starmer sat before Parliamentary Committee to try and explain the difference in international law, which meant that he could now change policy from not allowing US Air Force to use British bases to when they could now do it. And he was stumbling and bumbling and mumbling his way through this explanation, which was so incomprehensible and opaque that even the people in the committee were going, sorry, what are you talking about? You'll be pleased to know, though, that our esteemed leader has put out a tweet already this morning, 22 minutes ago. I welcome the ceasefire agreement reached overnight, which will bring a moment of relief to the region and the world. Together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain this ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, he might as well say, I really wish I was on that mission to the moon because I've got great plans for colonising it. He's got nothing to do with the ceasefire agreement. He's got nothing to do with any action or inaction taking place in the Middle East. The best we can do is pull HMS Dragon into dry dock for repairs. The one ship that we've got in the region for supposedly helping to open the Straits of Hormuz is out of action.
Yeah, and this is the time in which we live, in which there will be, tyranny and ridiculous oppression of the decent. The bad are completely feral and are out of control, and our government is so weak and pathetic. It can't do anything. It can't fight a war. It can't deal with foreign policy. It needs a cabinet secretary, apparently, to tell it what to do and what to think. And the only people that they can oppress are mums on Twitter. That's it.
Yes, exactly. It's absolutely shabby, shocking, and shithausen, I'm afraid. It's the three issues. Anyway, listen, Steve is warming up for the live show, says Tommy. So let's talk about that briefly before we let you go. 6th of May. It's looming large. It's going to be the day before the biggest local election kind of result, I suppose, we've seen maybe in our lifetime. Shepherd's Bush Empire, Mike Graham and friends, Stephen Barrett, a very big part of it. Also, Lewis McLeod is going to be there, Carol Decker from Tapau, the Right Said Fred are going to be turning up as well. So it's going to be quite a jamboree. Sorry? Intel lady as well, who's brilliant. I don't know if you've seen her latest.
Of course, yeah.
Her Hannah Spence, the fake plumber, is absolutely genius, absolutely brilliant. So we're really looking forward to that, Stephen. And if you still want to get a ticket, if you haven't got one yet, please do go to Ticketmaster and you can find one. They're almost sold out, I think, but there might be a few at the back if you want to come and join in the fun. It'd be great. Stephen, great to see you. Final word, actually, on talking of rules-based law. The shoplifting Waitrose story is another one, isn't it? Where, the guy tries to stop somebody shoplifting £13 Easter eggs, several of them, in fact, and he ends up getting the boot. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the same thing, Mike. You will see this again and again until things are fixed. These are all symptoms of a broken system. The good are oppressed and the bad get away with whatever they want. That is what we now live in. And the government are weak and pathetic and are constantly trying to pretend that they're not. They're lying to us. They're not competent. And we just need to get through this and get a government that's actually willing to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work and actually fix this country, because it's seriously broken right now. And I shouldn't get party political, so I won't name the party, but I get very, very angry when people say Britain is not broken. That absolutely triggers me right now, Mike.
Yeah.
Because I have never seen this country more broken in my lifetime. And I'm not sure I'm not sure it's been this broken in hundreds of years. This is the worst state the country has been in for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And it's about time. The first thing we need to do, even if you're not going to fix it, the first thing you need to do is just admit that. Denying it right now is just going to trigger me, and then you'll get both barrels from me, because I'm not having that anymore. That's just nonsense.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, Fraser Nelson's got a bit quiet, is all I can say. It doesn't say it anymore. But there we are. Listen, Stephen, great to see you as ever. Fantastic to hear your voice and your views and your point of view. And we will continue to do so every Wednesday from now until Kingdom Come, hopefully. Until it gets better, anyway. Stephen Barrett, ladies and gentlemen, our favourite barrister, very much part of our family here at the independent Mike Graham Show, and very much part of the new movement, if you like, because we're going to talk about this a lot today. The new movement for independent thought, for independent realism, for understanding of the news, for actually proper reporting of the news. As I said, if you'd been going to bed last night at about 10 o'clock, as I was, you would have been thinking, according to the mainstream media, we might be waking up to World War III. People were actually out buying, in bulk, spaghetti, buying toilet rolls, filling their cars up with petrol, thinking, we're never going to be able to do this again. And so, once again, I'm afraid I was proved right, and they were all proved wrong. Because I said to people last night, people were asking me, is it going to happen? Are we going to wake up to war? Are we all going to be in a terrible place this time tomorrow? No, because Donald Trump said he was going to wipe out a civilization. He got all the Fleet Street newspaper editors in a tizzy. They all started writing, Armageddon-type headlines. John Swinney, the leader of the Scottish National Party, the First Minister of Scotland, said it was a genocide, even though it hadn't happened. I mean, it's quite remarkable how ridiculously easily led these idiots are. And this is why, more than ever, this show and others are required, and they need to be watched, and you need to pass on the message to people that this is where you find the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. You might not like all of my opinions, but we will not pretend that something's happening when it isn't. And we will certainly not jump to conclusions when there's no reason to. And we won't tell you that something's happening just because we don't like the person who's doing it, which is exactly what the BBC does, exactly what Sky does, exactly what all of the mainstream broadcasters do, and what all the newspapers do. They've changed their headlines for the later editions this morning to say that a ceasefire was found at around about 11:30 last night. But basically, they're trying to frighten you. They're trying to scare you. And they're trying to make out that you're stupid and you'll be easily led and you'll believe anything. And we know that that's not what you're like. We know you're exactly not like that. So that's why the Mike Graham Show is going from strength to strength. 14 million views now after 3 months, 150,000 subscribers. Please do like and subscribe to the channel because that helps us. We'll be talking about Rachel Reeves coming up in a little while. We'll talk some more about Kanye West. We'll talk some more about HMS Dragon. We'll be talking to Johnny Gould about his recent holiday to Spain. But first, it's time for the news with Fiona McLeod.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes, and I've just got one thing to say.
He's back.
I'm back.
How is he back? Hang on. How is he back?
He got voted in.
Yeah, but we haven't cleared the HR process yet.
Yes. Well, have a listen.
This is unreal. This is like some kind of rebellion. All right, let him do it. Let him do it.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes, and I've just got one thing to say. I'm back, baby. I'm back. I had a lovely trip to the Caribbean. Fiona and... I was able to relax and take some great photos. It's good to be back on the Mike Graham team. Thank you to the HR department. Here is your news. Britain wakes up to another sparkling day. Lazy junior doctors have kicked off a 6-day strike, because nothing says caring profession like leaving thousands of patients in limbo while the NHS racks up another few billion in disruption costs. Brilliant timing, as always. In entertainment news, Kanye West has been banned from entering the UK, which has conveniently cancelled Wireless Festival. Nobody seemed to mind when Keir Starmer invited a terrorist leader to number 10 recently. You couldn't make it up. Oh, and globally, everyone's holding their breath over Trump's latest fiery threats to Iran, while Keir Starmer pleads for peace and tries not to let the Yanks use our bases for anything too explosive. Elsewhere, it's hit 25 degrees Celsius, the warmest day in 6 months. So enjoy the sunshine before the inevitable rain returns to remind us who's really in charge. What a time to be alive. Pass the tea. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers. That's right. I really love my Tiger Light.
I mean, I'm sorry. I wasn't told that he was back. I don't believe... Well, it's one from Margaret Yates. Because we had a democratic vote yesterday, Mike, and Edward Hughes was voted in. Yeah, but I explained yesterday, that's all very well. Yes, you voted for him, and so that was in his stead, and that was, a mark in his corner. However, I was also told that the HR department was still having to get through the whole scenario because, he needed to answer for what he did. And the fact that they haven't even bothered to tell me that they've somehow resolved it, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure Ed should be back so soon, says Catherine. What clearance did HR give? Exactly. It's a very good point. I think the question should be asked here. I was not expecting to see him this morning. I was expecting to see Fiona McLeod. And where's she gone anyway? What's happened to her? Hey? All right. Fiona's got to talk. No, she won't last long there. Far too sexist. But anyway, let's talk to our next guest, who is, of course, the fabulous Mr. Johnny Gould, who I think has been away, if I'm not mistaken, Johnny. Good morning to you. I think you've muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself? No? You're still muted. It's not difficult, the muting thing, is it? No. Because there's a mute button and you just unmute it.
How does that work?
There you go. That sounds better.
Thank goodness for that. It's called self-censorship, isn't it, by accident?
It is, yeah. Have you haven't got the old Green Party in there with you, so monitoring your speech, have you, by any chance?
Not quite. Polanski is persona non grata in this house, and I can tell you.
Now, you've been away, I hear.
We went on a delightful trip to Barcelona, which, if you've been there, it's very accessible.
I have.
All the flights are there, very competitive, very, very well priced, beautiful city, a range of history, both modern and ancient. You can imagine planning there is quite difficult because it is very, very elegant.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the underbelly of this civilization, which has had ebbs and flows through its centuries, there is a bit of a facade, an underbelly of very, very nasty Islamism, which is creeping out of the side streets and into the mainstream. There is a very, very big Muslim community. Now, that doesn't mean to say all Muslims are Islamists, but the ones who are veiled, and certainly the people that we encountered, are of an aggressive variety. And I'm sorry to say that we were trapped with one in a cab. Very, very unpleasant situation, I must say, Mike.
Oh, really? What? The driver of the cab, you mean?
Yeah, the driver of the cab. We went past the Olympic Stadium, and I know that Espanyol, Barcelona's second team, played there. And I said, do Espanyol still play there? And he said, I don't know, I think they play. And then he made some other comment about some place which I hadn't heard of. So he wasn't sure whether they played there or not. And I was a bit sketchy on that, must confess. And then I realized that actually he didn't really care about the place he was from. He said he was from a beautiful country called Morocco.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife was born in Morocco and has a very fluffy and nice view of the country. And she said, look, I'm from Morocco too. To which any normal person might say, oh, that's nice. Where are you from? And she'd say, oh, I'm from Casablanca. Where are you from? Right. Oh, yeah, I'm from wherever I'm from. I'm from Birmingham in because everyone's called Birmingham, isn't it, around the world eventually? Anyway, but he didn't say that. He then said, are you Jewish? To my wife.
And why would he say that?
Well, you'll find out in a moment. My wife sort of decided that, that was a fairly harmless thing to say to a fellow Moroccan. She has a nice view of the country that she left just before she turned 20. And she said, the Jewish people are the eternal enemy of us. And then he started narrating to us increasingly aggressively what it said in his holy Quran about the Jews. And he then tied in his exodus from Morocco because of the king Now, there's a great loyalty to the king amongst Moroccan subjects, not dissimilar to most people in this country, particularly the Jewish community, who are very, very loyal to the king, as you'll find most Jewish people are around wherever they are
Yeah.
in a diaspora around the world. And he got more and more aggressive. He blamed the decline, as he saw it in Morocco, into prostitution and corruption and poverty, and something called Zionism as well, and in the reason why he lived in Spain. And there's where the hypocrisy came in. My wife reminded him that you couldn't possibly say those things back home, but you're free to say them here. He said, exactly, I'm free here, I'm free. But he didn't, there was no kind of corresponding relationship between the freedom he enjoyed in Spain and him trashing his old country, trashing his king, and being able to do it. And so he started to get more and more aggressive. And there I was with my kids and my wife in the back of his yellow and black cage, his taxi, thinking, well, we need not make him more anxious about his drive. We've got another 5 minutes of the journey to go. And he got more and more aggressive. I asked my kids afterwards, who aren't very old, they're primary school kids, what they thought of him. And basically they said he just shouted the odds. He was shouting and determined. They understood that much of his aggression. And then finally, as we were drawing into where we were coming to, I asked him what he thought of Israel. And then obviously that was the point. He said, he came up with the old narrative, the Polanski and the Corbyn nonsense about it being stolen land and all this kind of reinvention of history. And from there, I said I paid him his fee, and I said to him in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum, to which he would say, Salaikum alaikum, I think the other way around. And then I said in Hebrew, Shalom Alechem, which is, as you can probably hear, etymologically similar, and he refused to say that back. He wanted us cancelled. And I'm looking at a guy like that who has a job. He's a licensed taxi driver. He pays his taxes, presumably. He contributes to society. But on a bad day, he could be triggered and do anything, drive through those diversity barriers and cause terrible pain in those places. There is an underbelly of extremely dangerous Islamism going on in Barcelona, and that was not just an isolated incident.
And these people are really angry as well, aren't they? I mean, I had a similar...
Really angry, Mike.
I had a similar experience in the US, actually, funnily enough. Not that recently, but I think it must have been relatively soon after October the 7th, 2023. And I was getting a cab from my sister's house in Connecticut to Kennedy Airport. And somehow we ended up on 95, talking about what had happened. And he just became really, really animated, and to the point where I thought, am I going to have to get out of this car? Because it's quite a long journey. And I don't really want to have a row with this guy. Is he going to let me out? Is he going to just dump me out of the car? And eventually we just agreed to stop talking about it because it was such a divisive kind of issue. Because obviously I was defending Israel and defending what terrible things had happened to them. And he just was getting more, a bit like your guy, getting more and more aggressive and more kind of, frothing at the mouth about, how terrible Israel was and how awful it all was. And it is this kind of, it's now almost a sort of hazard of living in the West, is that you might end up in a cab with somebody with those kinds of views.
I'm looking at this guy. He was, I don't know, between 40 and 45 years old, a little bit overweight. I don't think he had a criminal record. I just don't know. But we remind ourselves of the 86 people who were mowed down by a cargo truck on the front of Nice. And they looked at that guy afterwards. Was he on the terror watch? No, he wasn't. Did he have a criminal record? A small one for theft a few years ago. Anything could trigger this guy. I could have said anything as belligerently as him on the other side. Actually, I never get angry with these fanatics and Islamists because, a bit like you, Mike, we have the courage of our conviction. We believe in what we believe. And let's say, the West, the Jewish people have a pretty good track record of beating off these people over the many, many centuries. But the fact that he wouldn't join me in some sort of kinship, in sort of a brotherly relationship, he refused to say, Shalom Alechem, which sounds a little bit like Assalamu Alaikum because they are etymologically similar. He wanted us cancelled, I suppose, in an extreme situation, he'd want us dead as well.
Yeah, I know. It's troubling, isn't it? Let's talk a bit about what happened overnight, because I started the show off this morning with this kind of tirade, really, against mainstream kind of media and the way that they report what Donald Trump does, what he says, and how, most people went to bed last night, if they went to bed before 11 o'clock, believing that there was going to be World War III when they woke up in the morning, believing that they might have to move house or go into a shelter, or, this kind of mania that seems to have infected both the political sphere and the media sphere in this country, where people like John Swinney, who is indeed the First Minister of Scotland, head of the SNP party, actually said this is a genocide when nothing had actually happened. Donald Trump says, I'm going to wipe out civilization. Everybody takes him at his word, but they don't believe anything else he says. They just believe the bits that they want to believe. But let's have a look at what Fox News did last night on the ceasefire. This is Israel's point of view.
Well, the Israelis, for what they know so far with the details in this 2-week delay in the war, they're not too happy with the details, but they say it's President Trump's decision to make. The Iranian response was to fire another missile at Israel. It wasn't 5 minutes from the time that Truth Social post went up that our phones lit up with another incoming missile. This missile was intercepted over Jerusalem. The shrapnel came down. We've got no word of any injuries. It should be noted that word had gone out through the IDF that we should anticipate a lot of missile fire tonight, and they have not taken that down yet. So that's a situation right now. Sometimes we see here in the Middle East that they will fire one just to be defiant at the end, but it's also possible that word hadn't gotten out to the rocket crew. Laura?
So there are a few sort of strands of this, I suppose, to pick up. Israel saying that, the ceasefire doesn't apply to them attacking Lebanon. Iran immediately fired a couple of missiles at Israel, even after agreeing to ceasefire. But, I mean, it seems as though all of the doom and gloom merchants got it wrong. And Trump's, perhaps rather colourful language and rather fruity kind of disposition with the Easter Bunny over the last couple of days has worked, doesn't it?
He's done it before, hasn't he? He basically threatens World War III. He threatens to go in there. Look how he shook down Zelensky in the White House. And we know what was going on there. Zelensky kind of won that. No one seems to sort of really say that actually Zelensky won that battle. There was basically a deal to be signed in the other room, and he refused to sign it. And that's what the shakedown was. It was like one of these classic property deals where the bully tries to get you to concede to sign, and that's what he wanted to do. The Iranians know that he could obliterate them, and of course you cannot really have a ceasefire against this Iranian regime. They will continue to fight, just like that cab driver. It's the same thing. This is Islamism. This is a fight to the end. And so Iran will try and drive a wedge between Israel and the United States by continuing to rocket the mainland and civilian targets in Israel. Israel has defied the Pakistani mediation by saying that Hezbollah and the war in Lebanon will not be part of this ceasefire. And so the war will continue. Let's hope that the Straits of Hormuz are kept open. But I'm afraid to say I don't think this war is over. And indeed, the ceasefire might break within 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the immediate result appears to be, from what I understand this morning, good for the markets. That everything's up. The price of oil has dipped down below $100 a barrel. The Japanese market has peaked. The Korean markets are going up. I think the Dow, also the Nasdaq went up yesterday as well. So, financially speaking, at least it might be some respite. Although who knows how soon it will be before the old petrol pump attendants put the prices down in North London.
Some of us are, exactly. Some of us are drawing pensions very soon, Mike. So we're keeping a keen eye.
I've stopped looking at mine. I've literally stopped looking. I'm like, sorry, this is. I spoke to my financial advisor the other day, and I was like, please tell me when I can have another look. And she's like, it'll come back. They always say it'll come back.
Yeah, don't. I can't look for now. Look, it's. I feel sorry for the generation before us, Mike. Around the credit crunch era, 2009 era, people coming up to 60 years old, 15 years ago. I mean, their pension plans were obliterated. And then after that, George Osborne came along and liberated those people in their mid to late 50s and said,
Right.
hey, you can withdraw 25% before you're 65 years old. So the irony is the way to make money long term was changed from perhaps those people who were brave enough to invest in buy-to-lets to those people who put a couple of grand a year in a blameless pension plan, and now they've ended up with several £100,000. So you can't really plan for the future with this succession of different governments and their ideologies.
No, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that just about a month ago. I was thinking maybe I should have taken the 25% out, last year when it was, it was doing really well. But the trouble is, we are none of us soothsayers. We can't really see the future. But, I suppose Starmer has come out. I don't know if you've seen his tweet today, basically, welcoming the ceasefire as if he had anything to do with it and reiterating his wish to reopen the Straits of Hormuz as if he's had anything to do with that, because the only thing that he could have done was send HMS Dragon to help. But that's now been put into dry dock because it needs repairs after being at sea for a couple of weeks.
It's like he's watching the telly like we are, but because he's got the office of the Prime Minister, he can say those things. I could tweet exactly the same. Yes, I would also, on behalf of Johnny Gould here in central London, wish to see the Straits of Hormuz opening. It's just that I'm not the leader of a party and I wasn't elected. He's got exactly the same power. I mean, Trump keeps on swiping him, calling him no Churchill, calling him no Neville Chamberlain. And he's clearly out on a limb. And the idea that Macron and Carney and Starmer and the rest of the EU can sort of come together in a sort of championship rather than Premier League sort of group of dissenters is preposterous when their policies are basically veered towards the enemy. They've all declared for Palestine. They're all wary of their Muslim vote. And so therefore their words are absolutely meaningless.
Right.
So, for example, Meloni and Javier Milei in Argentina, they have more weight because you're not suspicious of their values or less suspicious.
Exactly right. Finally, what about Kanye West? Keir Starmer was so upset with Kanye West's anti-Semitism, he's banned him from coming to Britain. However, unfortunately, there's about 1 million other people that he hasn't banned who are already here.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's more than anti-Semitism, isn't it? I mean, Heil Hitler and the Nazi swastika was what Churchill fought. These are against British values. And then we had this bloke called Melvin Ben on yesterday on the Chattering Class radio stations saying, terrible things. I'm not part of this community. I'm afraid you are, mate. It's everybody's issue when a bloke turns up in a swastika. We fought for our freedoms here. People are quick to forget, or maybe don't even know. And I'm very proud of this as a British Jewish person, that I can walk down any street in Britain, Belfast, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Birmingham, Nottingham, Norwich, anywhere. There is not one Solperstein on the floor. And a Solperstein is a brass plate which acknowledges that in this house, a family was stolen and put in a camp and then murdered. This happens in any European city, in Strasbourg, in Prague, in Paris. You see these little Solpersteins at Amsterdam. We didn't have that here because we fought and beat the Nazis at huge cost. If you look at the backdrop there are buildings behind me there which are modern, and the reason they're modern is because the whole area was carpet bombed in the Battle of Britain. People forget the huge sacrifices that we did and how we fought fascism. So it's not for this generation to stop this. So of course it's right that we should stop a bloke who sings Heil Hitler. And I'll tell you what, no Jewish community member would want to meet him now. And these sort of soppy gits in my community who say, well, he must change. Or if he changes, then we can meet him. I wouldn't meet him. He can clear off.
Yeah. No, I know, absolutely. I mean, I'm generally against the banning of anything, but I can see why you would want him banned. But
he's dangerous, isn't he?
For me, it's hypocritical of Starmer, though, because there are so many people coming here on small boats who are also massively anti-Semitic, but they're giving him a free hotel and a nice blanket and a phone,
They're his kind of anti-Semites.
Yes.
aren't they, Mike?
Yes, absolutely.
As I say, I mean, it's not just sort of a problem. And, I do feel the pressure. It's not very nice having this all the time, every day in the cab in Barcelona and, these hate marches and everything. But it is an issue for all of us, as Kanye West delivered in the delightful lyrics of his Heil Hitler, record or whatever it is. I haven't listened to it. I don't need to listen to it. That guy, Bob Villan, I kneecap. These guys are a threat to all Western values, all that we believe in.
Yeah, totally. Johnny, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
As always.
Johnny Gould there. In fact, we'll just play, should we? Because before we go to the news, good to see you, Johnny. Thank you. That Melvin Benn clip. This is the guy who was going to be putting Kanye West on at the Wireless Festival. This is what he had to say yesterday.
The pressure that the Jewish community is under at the moment is immense, and I feel for them in that sense, and I speak on their behalf. Not for them because I'm not of that community, but I speak with my staff about the pressure that they're under, for example, and how we need to be supportive of that and those communities. But at the same time,
isn't that the point? I mean, I hear those words, but they will hear those words this morning. You haven't been supportive of them.
People of faith should have forgiveness in their heart, Justin.
But you can't tell them to forgive. It's up to them.
No, I'm not
isn't it?
telling them. I'm not telling them. I'm asking them.
And if they say no?
Well, if they say no, they have the right to that opinion. Of course they do.
But they don't have the right to have the ability to say to you, this was a mistake and you should rescind the invitation.
They have that right.
I mean, I dare say people will be arguing about it for a while, but we're going to be getting some news very shortly. Also, Mark Littlewood is here. And also, we've got a poll going because I actually came up with this last night when I thought, well, maybe, and I didn't really think it, but, if everybody's worried about the end of the world coming, maybe we should think about what happens next. And so I came up with this. Where would you rather end up? Heaven, hell, Dover, or with 72 virgins? That's coming second at the moment. 72 virgins, 14%. Heaven, 78%. See, I've always thought heaven would be quite dull.
Yeah, more interesting people in hell.
Hell, I think would be far more interesting. Yeah, I mean,
way more interesting people to hang out with in hell.
Do you know there's a place called Hell in Poland? I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I watched a Polish TV series.
Oh, so the tourist thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but there is actually a place called Hell. Yeah. And it's they do this tourist thing where you go to hell.
Yeah.
You can't go. I want to go there.
Right. I mean,
see what it's like.
I think we can agree all of them are well ahead of Dover, though, right?
I think nobody wants to go to Dover, unless of course you're coming over on a small boat, in which case you get given loads of good stuff. Right, coming up, we'll be talking to Mark Littlewood. We'll get his view on the state of play. Also, we'll be talking later on in the show to a whole host of really, really great guests as well, and we'll get to all of those. This is the home of common sense, the real home of common sense. 6 minutes past 8. Let's get the news with, I'm sorry to say, Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes, and I've just got one thing to say. I'm back, baby. I'm back. I had a lovely trip to the Caribbean. Fiona and... I was able to relax and take some great photos. It's good to be back on the Mike Graham team. Thank you to the HR department. Here is your news. Britain wakes up to another sparkling day. Lazy junior doctors have kicked off a 6-day strike because nothing says caring profession like leaving thousands of patients in limbo while the NHS racks up another few billion in disruption costs. Brilliant timing, as always. In entertainment news, Kanye West has been banned from entering the UK, which has conveniently cancelled Wireless Festival. Nobody seemed to mind when Keir Starmer invited a terrorist leader to number 10 recently. You couldn't make it up. Oh, and globally, everyone's holding their breath over Trump's latest fiery threats to Iran, while Keir Starmer pleads for peace and tries not to let the Yanks use our bases for anything too explosive. Elsewhere, it's hit 25 degrees Celsius, the warmest day in 6 months. So enjoy the sunshine before the inevitable rain returns to remind us who's really in charge. What a time to be alive. Pass the tea. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers. That's right. I really love my Tiger Light.
I mean, I don't know how it's happened. I really don't. I've obviously lost control entirely of this show. If he's able to come back without me being told, I just think it's ridiculous. Lord Viking says Edward's woke. Maybe he is. I don't know. I voted for Fiona, but I must say you sound good. Welcome back, Eddie, says Anise. And Hughes has gone rogue, out of control. He needs to be stopped. says David. Yeah. It's an interesting, it's a very wide range of opinions, I have to say. Where is Fiona, says Jan. This one, a super chat from Mick, who says, good morning, Mike and Pooch and Charlotte. Thanks for your common sense land. It's lovely to visit the independent republic of Mike Graham. It is. It is because I was going on about this morning. If you only just joined us, 8 minutes past 8. Morning, Mike. Stephen Barrett for Prime Minister, top man. I was saying how ridiculous some of the headlines were. We've got them from last night because I normally put together a list of the front pages. And of course, all of these front page headlines were written before the ceasefire was actually agreed and announced around about 11:30, quarter to 12. The Daily Mail has the night the world held its breath and prayed. The Daily Mirror went particularly mad, and as far as I know, from when I went to the petrol station this morning, they hadn't actually updated it. But they basically accused Donald Trump of being a maniac, said he was going to ruin the Earth. They had a picture of the Earth from Artemis 2 and said, the world's holding its breath. It's all a nightmare. End of the world as we know it, says the Daily Star. Orange man baby has a tantrum. Whole civilizations will die. The Guardian, outrage and fear as Trump warns whole civilizations will die in Iran. And then my personal favourite is The National, which is a Scottish newspaper, where they quote from John Swinney. It's genocide, plain and simple. Well, it's not genocide because it didn't happen, first of all. And it can't be a genocide if it has something that is in the future that isn't happening. So I'm really absolutely extraordinarily disappointed with my fellow scribes and fellow journalists who seem to have forgotten basically all of the proper, rules and regulations around what you're supposed to report and what you're not supposed to report. They're so deranged about Donald Trump that they're sure that whatever he's doing is wrong, and they're sure by association, therefore, that everything Iran is doing is right, which seems to me to be a very backwards way to look at it. So that's why, more than ever, I think we need independent media like this show and other shows as well, because, quite frankly, the broadcast media, the mainstream media in this country has given up on the truth. You don't hear it from them. They won't tell you what it is. They're all scrambling around in later editions to try and make out that, of course we knew this would happen. But even now, this morning, the questions are being asked about whether Donald Trump is going to actually stick to his guns, whether he's going to actually agree to anything, whether he's done the right thing. And they really don't want to give him credit for it, which I think is a shame.
Good info from Mark.
So, Mark Littlewood is here. Very good morning to you, Mark.
Good to see you, Mike.
A good message from Barry, who's please ask Mark how Super Saints are doing. That would be Southampton Football Club, your football team, who did rather well at the weekend.
Well, and well last night. So we beat Arsenal 2-1 in the quarter-final of the Cup on Saturday.
Yeah.
And last night, to get into the playoffs, we beat Wrexham away 5-1 to nudge into the playoffs. But as you might know, Mike, football fans are never satisfied.
No, of course.
So my take on it is that's 2 games in 4 days where Southampton failed to keep a clean sheet. Heads must roll.
Yeah, of course. Well, if you're an Arsenal fan, of course, Arsenal, who were only, 2 months ago, looking to do the quadruple.
Yeah, and then they blew 2 of them in a week.
It's now down to a possible double. We hate Arsenal because Keir Starmer supports them. Or he says he does.
Well, I think he sort of does. But what's so weird about Starmer is usually you get politicians faking enthusiasm for a football team that they barely care about.
Yes.
He seems to care about Arsenal Football Club, but shows no enthusiasm whatsoever.
No.
Right? He seems to go to every game and just stand there blank-faced.
Yeah. But I think that's his default position on everything.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
probably
he just
right.
stands there blank-faced.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put out a tweet this morning. I was reading it earlier. Let me see if I can find it for you. In which he's basically sort of trying to gain some kind of traction on the business of the ceasefire, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's trying to convince us all that he's got something to do with it. He says, I welcome the ceasefire agreement reached overnight, which will bring a moment of relief to the region and the world. Together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain this ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. As if he has any ability to do any of that.
Well, the only thing that we can do, and the only thing we are doing, is sending HMS Dragon in for a bit of repair, isn't it?
The thing is, I think you're being very harsh on HMS Dragon because it has been in the water now for a couple of weeks. They anchored it off the coast of Cornwall for a while they were taking care of it and refitting it.
It's done its bit.
Then it chugged over to Cyprus over a course of about 3 weeks, and now obviously it needs another refit.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Welcome to the new Royal Navy.
So this is our great contribution, is it, to try to secure world peace?
Yeah.
amble off down to
We're going to try and
Cyprus and come home.
convince the Iranians to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. Otherwise, we might have to bring the HMS Dragon out of dry dock and point it at you.
The Ayatollah must be quaking in his boots.
Although he's in a coma, apparently. So.
Yes. So he's quaking anyway. Yeah.
He's in a coma. Hilarious. So who knows? But I mean, let's go just back to what I was saying earlier, because this kind of derangement that goes on now in the media is way out of control. I mean, The Sun actually hasn't updated their front page. They've actually gone with Kanye West as the main story, but they've gone, US President Donald Trump said Iran's warlords had hours to back down last night or a whole civilization will die. Yeah. So again, they're reporting this story without any nuance whatsoever.
Yeah, and look, it looks like Trump's big threat and his big gamble has paid off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but you're the first person probably in the history of the broadcast media this morning on any station to say that.
To say that, yeah. So look, he is bombastic. He acts like a businessman and a trader and a dealer more than he does like a politician or a diplomat. But if this was a poker hand, he shoved all of his chips onto the table and the other side folded, basically, at least for a fortnight. And also, I mean, the other thing is, all of the papers are, quoting Donald Trump. This guy's a maniac, genocidal maniac. I mean, I don't think it's genocide, right? I don't think he wants to actually eviscerate all Iranians from planet Earth, right?
No. Well, in fact, the message that he gave out, because this was pointed out to me late last night, actually, his last line in his speech is, God bless the Iranian people. Yeah. So he wants to protect the Iranian people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and the bit that I'm really trying to get my head around, and look, I'd like to see the kind of hard evidence of it, but we can assume, can't we, that he's knocked back Iran's nuclear program substantially.
Sure.
I mean, probably by a couple of generations.
Yeah.
Now, I would hope, I mean, I'd like to see the hard evidence, but I think that we could probably make that assumption that's been knocked backwards, possibly even eviscerated. Well, that is a colossal win, because at some point that was going to have to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Right? We were not going to let them get to full nuclear capacity. Right. So that should be shouted from the rooftops. And by the way, as soon as Trump says something, very spiky and bombastic on Truth Social, the media go mad about it. But, the Ayatollah, okay, Rosie, you correctly say he's in a coma, but when he's not in a coma, sort of chanting death to the USA.
And burning people to death and sort of, hanging them from cranes and stuff
or
like
if you want to chant death to the IDF, you can be on the BBC and Glastonbury Festival.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. And for John Swinney, who's meant to be a responsible politician up in Scotland there, as the head of the Scottish government and also the leader of the SNP, here's a guy who's calling it a genocide before it's even happened.
Yeah, well, and it didn't happen.
Well, I mean, you can't call it a genocide if it hasn't happened, can you?
No, I think it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
And look, Trump, as I say, pushed all his chips. He went very big. We've got 2 weeks, right? But where's that going to end? But it now looks, right? What changes the dynamics of it, Mike, is Trump's big threat has yielded the Iranians stepping back several paces, right? So if that dynamic sticks, then hopefully we get a good ending to this. But
economically, it's already looking like a win, good. Isn't it? Because oil's down below $100 a barrel. As I was saying earlier, all of the various markets in the Far East are up.
Yeah,
looks like the Nasdaq. I mean, we're talking 10-15% up, which is quite a good number.
How long before Rachel Reeves, Richard III, puts out a tweet claiming credit for it all and how Labour's easing the cost of living?
Crikey, I've just checked my pension's come back a bit as well.
There you go.
There we are.
Win-win-win.
Yeah. Which, of course, the naysayers are going to go, well, yeah, but what happens in the next 2 weeks, because it could all go horribly wrong again. Yeah,
well, you can never exactly predict the future, right? And it could go horribly wrong in Iran. There are no certainties in war. But I still cling on to the hope that Iran becomes a democracy and we are able to get rid of this regime. And if you could, and I accept there's a lot of wishful thinking on my part, but if you could remove this regime and replace it with a pro-Western democratic regime of some form, some size, shape or form, the impact on the world would be fantastic.
It would.
And that area, Persia, has a much more pro-Western history, right? It's not like trying to get that to take root in Afghanistan. Now, we're a million miles away from that. Donald Trump hasn't even said regime change is his absolute determination. But imagine if we got there. The prize of that would be colossally
It would
big.
be. But again, people are unwilling or just don't want to accept that Donald Trump could make this a success story for not just America, but for Western Europe and for the Middle East. Because even up until, I would say, 2 days ago, when the talk was, when Trump kept saying, you know, we're talking to them, we're negotiating with them, they were saying things like, well, there's no evidence that there's any talks going on at all. And of course, the Iranians were saying, well, we're not talking to him.
Well, isn't that because the bloke you're talking to keeps getting killed?
Well, that's right. I mean, there is a bit of that, you know. Anyway, I'll see in 10 minutes, you know, he's gone. But no, it turns out that there were negotiations going on in Pakistan through various intermediaries. But again, my point about this is that the Western media, the mainstream media, are so unwilling to give Trump any credit that they'd rather believe the lying Iranians who basically lie for a living, right, than believe him.
Yes, and I mean, we've seen this in a lot of the Middle East conflicts, especially from the BBC, that claims made by Hezbollah are sort of treated as if they're on the press association wires, rather than it just being a dramatic
like they've never told a lie in their lives.
Yeah, quite.
You know, like we definitely haven't got any missiles that could go 4,000 kilometres.
Yeah, quite.
What happened to that one you fired at Diego Garcia, about 4,000 kilometres? Right. Okay,
exactly right. So no, I mean, look, Trump derangement syndrome is the new pandemic, isn't it?
It is.
So many people are catching Trump derangement syndrome. We might have to have a lockdown.
We might have to
combat Trump derangement syndrome, do you think? Or at least
I think we should lock down all mainstream journalists and not let them go to work.
Until we know that the virus has spread no more.
And not let them actually get access to the airwaves, you know, so that they can't actually poison the minds of young, innocent, sort of, you know, impressionable individuals who think that what they're telling people is the truth.
But the
never believe the media says Tesla. Well, but you can believe this version of the media, because this is the Mike Graham Show, never knowingly undersold, where we do not give you anything but the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We will always tell you what is actually going on, because I have no agenda here.
And paymasters.
And we don't have any paymasters either who have an agenda. We just literally are independent with the help of all of you guys. And by the way, this is really interesting, Pooch. We've gone to 151,000 already today. It was 150 yesterday on the old subscriptions. We've gone up 1,000 already just on this morning, which is they're all Southampton fans. Could well be. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now we're going to move on to talk to a couple of other things. Let us look at the Green Party. Always good for a laugh, right? Because it turns out that they've got some new prison spokesperson. Who doesn't like prisons?
No, quite.
Wants to do away with prisons.
Shut them all down in Scotland. Have I got that right?
Shut them all down. Have a look at this.
So I would want to see the complete abolition of the prison system in Scotland. Prisons are not safe, they're violent, they're really poor for people's health and well-being, particularly if you're a woman, and they fail to support rehabilitation. So actually they don't make those of us who are not breaking the law safer either. So people are rehabilitated, they do reoffend. So we would definitely, that's an ultimate goal for the Greens, is to not have the prison system as it is right now. In the meantime, we would massively want to reduce the number of people we are sending to prison.
So, according to the logic of the Green Party, the prison system doesn't rehabilitate people, and so we're no safer, because when they come out, they'll just commit more crime. Well, if you don't rehabilitate them in prison, and you don't send them to prison at all, they're not rehabilitated outside of prison either, are they?
Yeah, I mean, words fail me, right? I think at some point, right, some kind of modern day prankster's going to go forward, like, what was his name from Game for a Laugh? Jeremy
Beadle, yeah.
And just say, look,
Beadle's about.
You fell for this, that this political party actually believes all this stuff. It's surely a prank. I mean, it is crazy. And the whole point about prison as well, look, obviously, especially for those who have committed, you know, more minor offences, you want to try and rehabilitate them. But that's not the only point of prison. A big point of prison is to keep dangerous people off the street, whether you can rehabilitate them or not. You know, every lunatic, nutter, murderer, robber you'd lock up is somebody who can't murder or rob from innocent members of the public.
Even a burglar, you know, recidivist burglars who continually burgle people's houses, if they're in prison, they're not burgling your house.
Yeah, quite. So it's
not difficult.
It's a public safety issue, not just a rehabilitation issue. So, look, nuts. I mean, is she just dreaming of a world in which no crime ever happens, so we don't need
Well,
prisons.
as somebody pointed out to me the other day, Zach Polanski, so now they don't want any prisons, they don't want any borders, apart from the one around Palestine. Because they've got to have that border, because that's obviously a state. They don't want to have any laws against drugs, so all drugs will be legal. All prostitution will be legal, so there'll be brothels everywhere. So I don't actually know what they...
55 mile an hour speed limit.
Oh yeah, 55 mile an hour speed limit to make sure you don't use...
Well, you won't be able to have a car anyway, will it?
No, well, I imagine
they'll let you run up to 40,
you can
55
run,
miles an hour.
Or you can cycle. As long as it's an electric bike. That's the other thing that I've been hearing over the course of the last few days is all of these, mealy-mouthed people on mainstream radio in particular, waxing lyrical about how the car sales numbers for electric cars in March were so high, obviously because of the war. And it's even been pointed out to them live on the air, actually nothing to do with the war, because people were just ordering those cars months before the war even started. But the reason they're ordering them is because they've got cheaper.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with the fact that people want electric cars. People are driven to buy things because they're lower in price.
People will, respond to market signals, right? That's what they do.
It's supply and demand, isn't it?
Supply and
Basic
demand,
economics.
And, I'm technology neutral here, right? If electric cars are going to be fantastic and cheap, obviously people will buy it. What I worry about though, Mike, is the government keeps intervening in the market. So you make a particular investment on the belief, we had all this with diesel, didn't we? You make a particular investment on the belief that the government's promised that they're going to underwrite things, or the market's going to, and then the government changes its mind. So, it's more of a lottery than an investment decision when you're deciding about what transport you want to equip
and all
yourself
these
with.
sort of virtue signalling people who bought electric cars and went, the great thing is that there's no road tax. Guess what? Now there's going to be road tax.
Exactly that.
Because the government worked out that if you make a load of people buy cars that pay no road tax, you're going to have a big hole in the exchequer.
So keep moving the goalposts.
So keep moving the goalposts. And then start charging them by the mile, so there's nothing to do with congestion and
But we
air
still haven't
quality.
worked out how that's going to happen, are we? You're just going to fill in a form, self-assessment on how many miles you've driven.
I would imagine they'll do some kind of camera trick, won't they?
Right.
So they'll basically just track you with cameras, because there's so many cameras now in London. I mean, everywhere you look, you're kind of looking up there to see if there's one spying on you.
It seems.
I don't know if any of them work.
Well,
unfortunately, as a recipient of several penalty notices, I would say that some of them do work.
Well, the cameras are just trained on you, my
Maybe,
friend,
that's possible.
Right? They're only switching on the ones tracking your
Every time I
movements
see a
back.
Maserati, they go, bang, let's get him. I've been done for travelling down a road which apparently was closed to traffic, which I didn't see the sign for between certain hours of the day. Another one I was done for stopping in a road where I didn't stop. And I tried to, get an appeal going. Didn't work.
Well, it's just the camera froze, so it looked like you stopped.
They actually showed a picture of the car, and I don't even remember what I was. It was around the back of Southwark somewhere, and it was dark, so I presume it was early in the morning or early in the evening. And I was accused of stopping in a place where I wasn't supposed to stop, but I didn't stop. So, But
all of it's geared to revenue collection, not road safety, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a story in the papers today in which it says that now 1 million drivers in the past year have been done for speeding. And a large part of that is because the speed limit has been put down to 20 miles an hour. And most people in most normal cars find that really hard to stick to.
But it's quite hard to stick to, isn't it? But it's not really all geared to road safety, this.
Not at all.
Just where I live, there's a little turning which is buses only. There is a sign there that says buses only. And about 5 yards after it is a different turning for cars. And every time I'm in a taxi going home, I have to warn the cab driver, do not take that turn because you'll get fined 50 quid. And if you did take that turn, okay, you're technically going down a bus lane. But it's not that dangerous.
No.
You'd get to the same point anyway, or a bus would pull out and you'd have to retreat. So, all of these regulations
I've
of the
got
road.
a friend of mine who lives in West London who can't go down his own road to park his car during certain times of the day.
Really?
Yeah. So he has to remember what time of the day he's got to drive it.
He's effectively under house arrest because of the road rules.
Yeah, because I think there's a school in the road or something. So at some point, sort of 2 hours of the day, you're not allowed to drive in and out of the road.
That's barking, man.
Which is insane. And so if you don't know the area, of course you're not going to know that, And also some of the signs now, where, particularly in London, they've got Zone C or something like that, and you're meant to know what that means.
Yeah, what
I
does
don't
it
know
mean?
what it means. I'm not driving around with the sort of, the London guide to penalty fines. What does Zone C mean? I don't know.
Yeah, so all of the road regulations have become so complex that even if you apply common sense, you're going to step on a few landmines and get fined.
Yeah.
Well, that suits the Exchequer, doesn't it?
That
It's
does
basically
suit the
another
Exchequer.
tax on driving a car.
Well, it absolutely is. And the number of fines, as I say, is now increased by something like 30% in the past year alone in the whole of the country.
Yeah.
And people tell me that in places like Manchester, Birmingham, Newcastle, Glasgow now, where they've all got some kind of, congestion zone charge of one kind or another, it's completely killing the shopping and the kind of...
we've got these mad low traffic neighbourhood things coming in, haven't we, where we're going to...
Well, I've been done by one of those
cities.
before, because there's loads of those around Blackheath where I sometimes come in and out of when I'm trying to get to Sussex. And again, you're allowed to go in one direction at some point of the day, but you're not allowed to go in the other direction.
You have to go all the way around planet Earth in order to come back to the road that you actually wanted to get to.
Speaking of which, I suppose I should highlight the Daily Mirror today, because it is particularly bad. This is the front page. Have you got that just front page on its own, or you probably haven't? I think I can find it. Hang on. It is just ridiculous. Where are we? Oh, yeah. So the Daily Mirror does this picture, right, which is the picture of the Earth taken from Artemis 2.
But the implication being that Trump's going to nuke planet Earth from the moon.
Yeah,
that's
basically.
The kind of that's
the kind of image
implication.
they're giving. But here's what they wrote: an extraordinary glimpse of Earth from the Orion spacecraft after a journey that represents the very best of humanity, because they're all properly DEI appointed. There's a woman, there's an ethnic minority. They're all hugging each other. They're all making little heart symbols. Yet our precious home continues to be torn apart by the worst of it. And as a maniac in the White House threatens to obliterate a whole civilization, the world holds its breath.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Yeah, melodramatic.
I put a thing out
belief.
last night saying they must have had some kind of leaving do at the Mirror last
night. It's the daily melodrama.
They've all gone back absolutely pie-eyed.
Well, you say about the DEI thing, I can't remember the name of the black guy, the astronaut who's on there, but I saw it was reported he was going to be the first black man to have gone to the moon and back. And he actually intervened and said, can you stop referring to my ethnicity? It's irrelevant that I'm black. I just want to complete the mission, thanks. So he kicked back on all of this.
Well, that's the first unwoke thing I've heard them do.
Yeah.
Because the other thing they did was they started naming craters of the moon after various, people.
Poets.
Or things.
Right.
Well, one of them apparently lost his wife a few years ago to cancer, very sad, all of that. But so they read it out and said, we're going to call this particular black hole crater Carol.
Right.
Which didn't seem to me to be a great tribute to somebody.
No.
And then they all made the little heart symbol. They all burst into tears, started hugging each other.
Okay.
And you just kind of go,
I'll take
really?
it back. They are actually all woke.
They are.
Right? Okay.
No, they really are. It's the woke trip to the moon.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what people I said.
Do you think it's a bit frustrating? Do you reckon it's frustrating to go all that way and not land? I know it wasn't the plan to land, but it just seems to me like, I don't know, it'd be like going to Paris for the weekend
and not getting off the train.
Walking to the Eiffel Tower,
well,
but
or not getting
up
off the Eurostar.
Yeah, not getting off the Eurostar.
Yeah, no, I mean, somebody said to me, we're going to go very, very, very near the moon, and then we're not going to get off.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's to see the dark side of the moon, but it must be pretty frustrating to get that close and not effectively take the final step.
And also, what's this thing about the far side of the moon? Because they said you can't call it the dark side of the moon, you have to call it the far side of the moon.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, which is bad news for Pink Floyd, obviously.
Yeah.
They have to rewrite all the lyrics.
Got to relabel
I'll see you on the far side of the moon.
But isn't the idea there yet that we haven't seen that? I thought it was because it's been bombarded by meteors. That's why there's all those craters there.
Yeah.
It might, if you kind of squint a bit and cross your fingers, give some indication as to how life emerged on planet Earth.
It might,
but I'm not quite sure how 3 astronauts looking at it gets you there. I mean, they dropped some kit off there or something, have they?
I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I know that people will hate me for saying this, but I'm not that interested in it at all. We've got enough problems on Earth that we should be solving.
Yes, I think I've got some sympathy for that. And it's questionable what it really gets you. I mean, look, it's a hugely impressive human feat, right?
It is.
But the question is, does it actually yield anything practical? Or is it a bit like climbing Mount Everest because it's there? Right. Edmund Hillary gets to the top of Mount Everest, but he doesn't claim that he's discovered some new medicine or drug as a consequence.
No.
It's just a human achievement.
Yeah, here we go. Artemis 2, cruise luggage sent to the wrong side of the moon. That would be British Airways, wouldn't it? The final ignominy. But yeah, I mean, I prefer the Elon Musk sort of approach, which is that he wants to use space as an asset rather than just a curiosity. So he's willing to set up all kinds of data centers on the moon, or possibly just, sort of orbiting around the Earth, which seems to me to be a great idea and worthy of spending money on. Because one of the problems with data centers on Earth is that they're going to use up massive amounts of electricity and massive amounts of water. And if you can do that outside of the Earth,
but where's it going to get its energy from?
Solar.
Well, from the sun, I suppose.
Right.
And
of course, look, what is going to happen, isn't it? It's not entirely my cup of tea. I like going to places where there's sports bars and sun, rather than being in the deadly vacuum of space. but
well, if you're an Arsenal fan, it might be an improvement.
Might be better.
Go there as they lose. Although they did win last night in their first leg of the Champions League.
In fairness,
only 1-0.
They got by. But there is going to be space tourism, right? Before too long.
I guess
so people who like this and say, right, I'm mentally expensive at the moment. But we're probably not that many years away where,
would you go?
Commercially. No, God, no. I mean, I want a sports bar and a decent cold pint of beer.
Yeah.
And a pint of beer that's been, chilled by human beings, not cold because I'm in the dead, empty vacuum of space. Thanks, right?
You don't fancy a trip with Katy Perry up to this?
No. And to be honest with you, I'm not a great flyer either, so I find kind of taking an easy jet flight to Mallorca panicky enough.
Right.
I think firing me up into low Earth orbit is
I think that's probably
might not really
great.
be good for the stomach.
No, I don't think it's good for you. No, not at all. And there'd be nothing worse, would there, if you go on a space mission to sort of a bit of holiday making in space and you're just ill the whole time.
Yeah. But I don't know. You said you're a bit sceptical about this whole space thing as well. Maybe I need to grow a bigger heart and soul. But I don't get overwhelmed by natural phenomenon.
No.
Right? I've been to Las Vegas dozens of times in my adult life. I've never bothered to go to the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And it's just a bloody big hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I once played football in the Grand Canyon.
Is that right?
But I was only 15, quite stupid. And we went on a school trip, basically, and we climbed down, sort of halfway down.
Well, if the ball goes over, you've got to take a throw in from the from the edge of the precipice.
That's it. And but I mean, it's a typical British thing to do. These very pale, white, 15-year-old British boys.
And I can remember the other one for me. It was supposed to be so spectacular when I was a teenager. We were my family on holiday in Tunisia, and from our tourist resort, it was about a day to get to the edge of the Sahara Desert.
Oh, yeah.
So we sort of did that as if it was some great exploration. I mean, it's just a lot of sand.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and said, well, that's a lot of sand for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's a desert.
And then I was ready to go home.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for just not bothering to Lawrence, not bothering to go to some of these things. I mean, I remember going to Niagara Falls once.
A lot of water,
and it was dark for a start,
right?
And it was also very cold because it was the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And so as a result, there was this huge build-up of ice. And so as you walked around the bit where you could see the water going over, you were actually a lot higher up than you should have been.
Okay.
Because there was about 1.5 foot of ice.
Right.
And I ended up getting quite scared because you're then above the level of the fence.
Right.
So you could just fall in.
Right.
And I thought...
So you couldn't see anything and it was terrifying.
And it was quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Luckily...
Not my ideal holiday.
Luckily, I met a woman who was in the same place and we went for a drink in a revolving restaurant, which Egon Ronay always said, don't ever go and eat in a revolving restaurant because the food's always terrible. But the revolving restaurant was quite good.
Right.
So that was all right. But I saw it. But it was kind of rather uneventful in terms of, because you don't get, unless you're at the bottom of it, you don't really see the majesty of it. At the top of it, it just looks like a waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I think actually if I was in space and you look back on Earth, it would be a bit of a mind-blowing experience. But look, I know what it looks like, right? I've seen the photos.
Yeah.
I've seen the photos.
Well, you don't need to go there now because you can just see that, can't you?
Exactly, yeah.
And it looks like it's meant to look. But it's bad news for the old flat earthers, though, isn't it?
I'm obsessed by the Flat Earth Society. And I think they're having a little bit of a hard time spinning their way out of this,
Yes.
actually. What was that famous Flat Earth Society recruitment leaflet from a few years ago saying, we're growing and growing, we have more members in every part of the globe?
Yes.
Which was
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a bit...
Spot the deliberate mistake.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to... Yeah, it's a bit hard to reconcile
Well, I
all
was
these
saying this to
images
you
with
the
the
other
Earth
day.
being a giant pizza, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I was saying this to you the other day. The funniest thing about the flat earthers is that they tell you that the reason that they can prove that it's flat is because when you put your foot down on it, it's not
feels
curved.
flat and looks flat.
It's flat. And you go,
Yeah.
okay then, that's convinced me.
Yeah, no, it's bad news for them. And if you want a good laugh, though, look up some of the YouTube videos of them trying to explain all of this away.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, they've got a harder spin doctor job than the Labour government, I think, in explaining away everything that's just happened.
Yeah, maybe they should get involved in the Labour government and see if they can get them out of the
Well, or the
shtuck
Green
that they're
Party,
in.
you know.
Or the Green Party.
Similarly delusional.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, listen, Mark, good to see you.
Great
Thank you
to
very
see
much
you, Mike.
indeed.
Great
Thanks
pleasure.
for coming in. And so both Southampton and Millwall could be up into the Premier League next season.
Just about possible. More likely one or other, I suspect Saints and Millwall will both be in the playoffs.
I know,
but-
well, we both know Kevin O'Sullivan. He's a Fulham fan.
Yeah.
He often used to say, although I'm not sure if it's still the case with him because Fulham have been in the Premier League for a while now, but he hated them going up into the Premier League because he said it was just a nightmare because it was much more fun going to see them in the Championship.
Oh,
than
yeah,
actually-
especially if you get whipped. So
where he's
last
just getting
season in
beaten
the
all
Premier
the
League,
time.
Southampton won 2 games all season.
Yeah.
We've won 2 games in the last 4 days. There is a case for staying in the more competitive
There is.
division.
Yeah,
much more
absolutely.
exciting.
I wish Keir Starmer had stayed in the more competitive lower divisions
Yeah.
of politics.
Amateur leagues,
Stayed
yeah.
on the back benches. Yeah, exactly. Mike and Mike, have you seen that 2-tier Keir is off to the Middle East? Is he? Really? I haven't seen that. But it wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, it's been about 6 or 7 days since he's been anywhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was in Finland recently.
He's so desperate to get out of Britain, he's happy to go visit Tehran now, is he?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's going to go and sort out the. He's going to go and talk to the Ayatollahs in a coma. See if you can wake him up. Very unlikely. However, is it time for some more news, or have we done that? Some super chats. Yes, let's do some super chats, and then I've got actually some good messages that came in on Substack that I want to do. Mike, please check your sack, says Jane. Okay. Love the show. A couple of people have said that to me. I mean, we haven't seen much of a sack lately, have we? No. Please check your sack, says Cindy. I got confirmation your gift was delivered. Great show as always. I love my President Trump. Go USA. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking over at where normally the post comes in, and I don't see anything to open, to be honest. But what I could do is some of these messages that came in on Substack, which are rather good. Let me see if I can find them. Oh yeah, here we go. So this from Angie, who says, I voted for Hugh Edwards, however, I would be happy to vote for Fiona if she was more fun to watch, especially like Sue White from the series Green Wing, who was played by Michelle Gomez. Green Wing, I don't know that show. Steve Baker, who was a guest yesterday, excellent interview giving reality of being an MP. More like this, please, says Will. Norma says, I can't stand the breathy voice of Fiona, and I wouldn't mind her if she would give us a break from her languorous lisp. Edward's voice is clear and precise, much more pleasant. Okay. This from, who is this from? I can't actually see the name. Fantastic show today. The best part was Mike's meltdown on Donald Trump and the Easter Bunny. It was hilarious. I cannot stop laughing. It's like I would like to sit with Donald Trump. It's over Albert Prime Minister the Clown. Please reply to this on an ad. Any comments? The Don and the Easter Bunny, says Carol. Priceless. I could watch it all day. Biden's also pen. He's great with children, although unlike the stiff we have when he can't even interact with adults, let alone children. And Anne-Louise says, great show. Trump and the Easter Bunny. That was brilliant. That was what we focused on a lot yesterday. Trump and the Easter Bunny. Genius. I don't think anybody else could have carried that off.
Superb imagery.
I mean, can you imagine Keir Starmer? I mean, I wonder who he would have standing next to him, a Womble or something.
Yeah.
You know, he would be, we put him in the Easter Bunny outfit. It'd be funny. Right, okay, coming up, who are we talking to? I think Chris Morrison's here from the Daily Skeptic. Have we got anything to play before that? We've got the news, haven't we? Yes, of course. Let's do the news with, I'm afraid, Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes, and I've just got one thing to say. I'm back, baby. I'm back. I had a lovely trip to the Caribbean. Fiona and... I was able to relax and take some great photos. It's good to be back on the Mike Graham team. Thank you to the HR department. Here is your news. Britain wakes up to another sparkling day. Lazy junior doctors have kicked off a 6-day strike. Because nothing says caring profession like leaving thousands of patients in limbo while the NHS racks up another few billion in disruption costs. Brilliant timing, as always. In entertainment news, Kanye West has been banned from entering the UK, which has conveniently cancelled Wireless Festival. Nobody seemed to mind when Keir Starmer invited a terrorist leader to number 10 recently. You couldn't make it up. Oh, and globally, everyone's holding their breath over Trump's latest fiery threats to Iran, while Keir Starmer pleads for peace and tries not to let the Yanks use our bases for anything too explosive. Elsewhere, it's hit 25 degrees Celsius, the warmest day in 6 months. So enjoy the sunshine before the inevitable rain returns to remind us who's really in charge. What a time to be alive. Pass the tea. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers. That's right. I really love my Tiger Light.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm still slightly nonplussed about this. You know, I was not consulted. I think I have the right to be consulted if I'm going to actually have my own newsreader on my own show. It's called the Mike Graham Show, not the Bleeding Edward Hughes Show. You know, so I'm going to have words with the HR department, to be honest, because I'm not happy. I know some of you are saying, well, we voted for it. We should compare pictures of Fiona's and Edward's bums to decide which is best and who should get the job, says Stuart. Yeah, I see what you did there, Stuart. I know what you're up to. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea at all, because it starts to demean the show. It's a very serious show, this, you know. We're not messing about. You know, we're bringing you news, views and opinions from around the world. Love the fact that Edward has got a bit cocky. He's making news fun. Yeah, I'm not keen on that. I don't like, you know, this is what happened to Hugh Edwards. He started to get a bit full of himself, right? Suddenly he's in the gym, he's getting his hair cut, you know, he's getting all kind of, you know, leery. Edward is gloating, says Barry. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's right. I don't think we should allow it. Pooch, I think we may have to take matters into our own hands here, you know, because I think we should. I think give him a. He's not suspended now, right? But have him take some leave. That's what happens in the business, right? You can take paid leave, right? But I would say takes paid leave for the rest of the week. That's what I would say. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Right now, though, let's talk to Chris Modison, who's from the Daily Sceptic. He's the environment editor, of course, of the Daily Sceptic. We've got lots of policies from the Green Party to talk about. But none of them seem to be very much about the environment. Chris, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike. Sorry you're having trouble with the newsreader. Hopefully order can be restored.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody's got their own kind of agenda these days. You know, it's no longer simple. You can't just come and do your job. You've got to be part of some kind of, you know, movement, you know, and you've got to have a fan base or something. It's really...
It's journalists. It's like herding cats.
It is. Well, I was actually bemoaning, and you're a veteran journalist. I hope you don't mind me calling you that. Some standing. You were a financial journalist. I'm really puzzled as to what's happened to journalism in this country because I describe, for example, the Westminster journalists as being very incurious. They don't sort of ask questions anymore. I mean, like they've all forgotten, for example, about Morgan McSweeney's phone. You know, This is one of the biggest scandals in the history of what I would call this century's, you know, politicians, you know, where they've got a cover-up going on. They've got Peter Mandelson pretending that, you know, he didn't know what was going on. We've got Morgan McSweeney pretending, in my view, that he had his phone snatched off him. There's no evidence to suggest that it's true. And yet nobody's really looking into it anymore. They've sort of all moved on. And then last night, they were all sort of smacking their lips going, oh, Donald Trump's going to cause World War III. And then they suddenly all had to change up for the third edition and go, oh, there's a ceasefire. Not one of them seemed to see it coming. And you just think to yourself, and a bit like the environmental stories nowadays, you know, you read passages in the Times and the FT and places like that, which state things which are not facts as facts.
Yeah.
So where did it all go wrong, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say I'm a veteran journalist, and yes, I mean, I was inspired to go into journalism by Woodward Bernstein, and in those days, you know, they had the Insight team and Panorama and World in Action, and it was all investigative journalism, or a lot of investigative journalists. There's no point being a journalist unless you're an investigative journalist, unless you ask questions, you know, the 5 W's. And you're right on the environment. We've had 30 years of completely narrative-driven journalism. I mean, you might as well replace most of these people with AI. I mean, AI would do a better job. There is no point in being any sort of journalist unless you ask questions, and a lot of that's gone. And there, well, we could talk all day about some of the reasons. We can go on about the good old days to a certain extent. I mean, it wasn't all good old days. There were plenty of sort of useless journalists around 50 years ago. But I think we've lost that sort of curiosity. And as you say, on the environment side, I excuse me, retired slightly, but I started writing again 7 or 8 years ago. I got interested in climate change and the net zero and the whole environmental thing. And I got interested as a journalist, and I started reading about, is there a climate crisis, all this sort of thing. And you just have to look for a day or so, and you'll see that most of it is, it's more or less a hoax. It's more or less being done for political purposes. It's more or less being done according to a narrative. And all of the stories that you see in the mainstream media that are the basis of all of this idea that we can do without hydrocarbons are based on a lot of science that doesn't add up. No. Particularly, they've demonized carbon dioxide. I mean, and they've demonized hydrocarbons. And this is this whole thing that, first of all, carbon dioxide, 97% of all carbon dioxide that enters the atmosphere enters naturally. We only produce 3%. And what are we going to do if we stop producing our 3%? Are we going? Is the temperature going to stop? Is the climate going to be controlled? This is what these people are telling you. So when I've been looking over the years at this, nothing adds up. There is not a scintilla of proof to show that there's a climate emergency, for instance. Right. And you look at all of the stuff they produce, all this stuff about extreme weather. Extreme weather isn't getting worse. Wildfires are not getting worse. Less people are dying from extreme weather. Even the IPCC, the United Nations body, says that extreme weather is not getting worse. And yet it's the basis of this enormous scientific hoax in order to persuade us to do without hydrocarbons.
And it's also rather good at sort of swindling money out of us in a way as well, because all of these green businesses, for example, particularly when it comes to energy companies, are being subsidised to a mammoth effect, not just by government money, but by our money. We pay a sort of a levy, if you like, every single month. We pay our electricity bill or our gas bill, money which goes to a private company, which is making hay out of, green energy. And all that happens to us is that we end up paying more and more and more for it.
I give you Dale Vince.
Yeah. I'd rather you didn't, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. This is a man who produces 0.06% of our energy, current energy on the electric grid, with his 76 fleet of aging wind turbines. And over the last 20 years, he's collected £145 million in subsidies.
Yeah.
And you now see him going all over the place saying, we've got to reduce our use of hydrocarbons, all this sort of thing. He gave £5 million to the Labour Party before the general election. I mean, where's the value in that? That 145 million that went into ecotricity to subsidise their sort of windmills that produce essentially, within a margin of error, nothing. He's produced that amount of money. That is directly paid by us on our electricity bills. That goes directly onto our electricity bills. 15 billion pounds a year on our electricity bills.
I mean, when I asked him about that, because I used to speak to Dale quite a bit in the old days, he claimed that it was actually money that he got to subsidise his sort of youth training scheme or something like that. So he said it was all about creating jobs in the industry, which he may well say. I don't know if that's true or not. But certainly he's getting the money from government funds, which is inevitably our money.
Well, he has this argument that it's not a subsidy, and nobody believes it, because it doesn't come directly from the government. It comes from, there's some sort of circular route where it comes from taxpayers themselves. But it's a subsidy. Cool. I mean, if it looks like a duck and all that, and he comes up with all these fanciful things that he actually says. I've seen him on the radio saying, I don't receive a penny in subsidy. I mean, but then I'm not saying Dale Vince does, but then a lot of these people believe that women have penises, and they believe all sorts of funny things.
I think he probably is one of those. I think he is one of those. I mean, it's not very scientific, is it? Because I mean, you can't be on the left if you don't believe that. You have to believe it, otherwise they sort of excommunicate you and go, oh, you're one of those horrible TERFs, one of those people that hates women. And you're going, well, not really, actually. The reason I'm saying that it's not true is because it's demonstrably not true, and it's not scientifically provable.
I know. Well, it's the same when you look, as I say, as I started doing a few years ago, at the whole thing about the climate science and the need for hydrocarbons. And you just think, these people, what are they smoking? I mean, in particular, I would, argue now that, and I have in a recent article, that the problems in the Gulf, and there's been a small cessation. Hopefully, it'll continue, but who knows? I mean, I wouldn't bet the ranch on it. We are essentially getting a lesson, a dress rehearsal for net zero, because we face the fact that 25% of our hydrocarbons are going to be taken out of the world economy. And we can see straight away what will happen. Fertilizer prices have risen by 40% worldwide over the last month or so. What these people, they go on about energy all the time and that how we have to stop drilling hydrocarbons for their sort of fake climate crisis. But what they are realizing, but what people have been telling them for years, which is obvious if you look at any sort of detail, is that hydrocarbons are in everything in a modern society. They're in fertilizers. Crop yields have doubled in the last 60 years around the world because they use nitrogen-based artificial fertilizer. That has pretty well abolished natural famine around the world. It's ubiquitous in medicine. Chemistry-based medicine is at the basis of a lot of production medicine. Plastics make aeroplanes and cars 30% lighter. It's everywhere. We use it for chemicals everywhere, and yet these people like Ed Miliband, are saying we cannot drill for hydrocarbons. It's a bit like saying that. It's a bit like Ed Miliband saying we have to have a ban on wheat.
Yeah.
Because,
but it's also like having a ban on civilization, because we've come this far and we've evolved, scientifically, and we've been able to create all these incredible kind of, useful devices and useful things. And what they're asking us to do is to reverse that process and go all the way back to sort of, eating with a bamboo spoon, which probably, I would imagine, actually is probably quite environmentally unfriendly to make a spoon out of bamboo, I would imagine.
Well, they do actually say that. They actually say that we ought to go back to building with forest detritus, I think I saw in one UN report. And by that, they mean that, you see, if you ban hydrocarbons, you pretty well ban the use of cement, glass, all of these things, plastics.
So back to sort of wattle and daub, then, is it?
We are back to mud huts. I mean, Ed Davey, that clown who runs the Lib Dems. He was one of the Lib Dems. They all did. All of the Lib Dems were going to vote a year ago for this climate and nature bill that would have reduced hydrocarbon use in the economy to 10% within 10 years. And that would include all imported use, including the hydrocarbons that go into imported food. That would have just led to immediate societal collapse.
Right.
I mean, this clown, should have been sort of, to paraphrase David Steele, go back to your constituencies and prepare to live in mud huts.
Yes.
I mean, I wonder the level of utter stupidity, because there were 200 MPs that were willing to vote for that, including 2 Conservatives, would you believe?
Well, that's
and
the
of course,
problem
all
with the
agree.
Conservatives. I mean, the Conservative government was partially undermined, if not wholly undermined, by Boris Johnson's obsession with net zero. And in normal Conservatives with a small c just didn't buy it. And they went, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I went through that time. There was an immense brainwashing. I call it the Greta hysteria.
Yeah.
Autism on stilts. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, this sort of little doom goblin, was able to dominate the headlines. Jeremy Vine once tweeted that Greta Thunberg was interviewing, or they were talking on Radio 4 with David Attenborough, and he said it was the radio event of the decade. I mean, what are these people smoking?
I know.
I mean, this is the extent of the hysteria.
I mean, Attenborough just literally needs to shuffle off.
I know. And anyway, so Johnson is not a very educated man. He's educated in the way that, he can recite Greek poetry, apparently, as a party piece and this sort of thing. And he's educated in the legends of ancient Rome. But when it came to two big scientific problems in his prime ministership, COVID and net zero, he just had the impression of the last person who sat on him.
Yes.
I mean, he hadn't got a clue how to look at the science, how to look at the scientific process, how to work out that COVID would destroy our finances, how to work out that net zero would destroy our society if he carried on in this lunatic way. And yet that is what dominated the prime ministership of a supposedly educated man.
Yeah. Totally.
Go figure.
Final question for you. The piece of the Times today saying Rachel Reeves has been accused of blocking £17.5 billion worth of investment in the North Sea after she shelved plans to scrap a windfall tax on oil and gas. because of or following the airstrikes on Iran. Apparently, she was keen to access at some point or other about 1 billion barrels of oil and gas by the end of the decade per year, and she was supportive of the plans at the time, which was a bit earlier, I think, last year. But now she's decided to U-turn on it again. They're very good at U-turns, and so we are not going to actually go. Despite what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz, we're not going to go and find our own oil and gas that we can actually use to make it cheaper.
They're enthralled to this sinister Miliband. I mean, the Jackdaw gas field could start pumping gas almost immediately, a few months, and it could increase the supply of our own British supply by 6%. You know, and they're stopping it. They're stopping the gas of life. Why are they doing it? I mean, I think more and more people are waking up. This Gulf thing will show people it's a dress rehearsal. It may well get worse, the Gulf thing. I'm not convinced that it's a 2-week, very fragile ceasefire. But, you know, the Straits of Hormuz are now in charge of an Islamic terrorist government who are willing to hold us to ransom. And yet we have politicians in this country who are willfully putting concrete down fracked gas holes, are refusing to look for more gas. I suspect that, and this is the myth, they say, oh, the North Sea's running dry and everything. Well, no, it's not. We've taken out a lot of the easy stuff, but drilling techniques have improved immeasurably in the last 40 years, particularly fracking. We can get gas out of a lot more places cheaply than we used to. And if we go looking in the North Sea, we'll probably find a lot more oil and a lot more gas and we could even become, and particularly if we frack on land, we could become energy independent again. And that's true energy security, not this nonsense with Dale Vince's, if the wind is blowing, energy producing windmills.
Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. A lot of sense coming out there from Chris Morrison there from the Daily Skeptic. He's their environmental editor and talks a lot of sense. A lot of you have been giving me information about Starmer's trip to the Middle East. I've got some details here. Apparently he's on his way to the Middle East this morning. He's flying to the Gulf where he's going to meet with RAF crews protecting Allied airspace. And he's going to address some troops. So presumably he's going to Cyprus, is he? Unless he's going to give away the location of where the troops are, which is somewhere else, which wouldn't be too intelligent, would it? I mean, why would he do that? It comes after the US agreed a temporary ceasefire, it says here. So Keir Starmer says he's welcomed the ceasefire agreement, but he will be holding bilateral meetings with Gulf partners and regional leaders today. But they haven't actually said exactly who he's going to meet, which is presumably because he doesn't know yet. They're still trying to figure it out, right? HMS Dragon, meanwhile, has been deployed to protect British air bases in Cyprus, but it has now docked for maintenance. So it's not really protecting anybody, is it? LCL says, why does Pooch always ignore me? I don't think he does. Because if he was ignoring you, he wouldn't put that up on the screen, would he? So, I'm not quite sure. This by far the most impressive interviewee this week, says Not Baltic. Is that Chris Morrison you're talking about? Yeah, Chris is a great guy. Very sensible as well about net zero in particular. Coming up, we're going to speak to Siobhan White, whose daughter, of course, was brutally murdered by a crazed illegal migrant who's now gone to prison for life. She's been talking to Nigel Farage, who was at a press conference yesterday. We'll play you that. She's also going to see Keir Starmer whenever he's back in the country, I think coming up later on this month, in order to try and get some kind of answer from him about what he's going to do about the deadly threat of illegal migrants and the way that they continually harass, assault, rape and murder British girls. Something needs to be done. We'll hear from her coming up very shortly. Also, we'll have Pooch's Pooch later on. We'll hear what Liz Truss has been up to in America. And we'll talk as well about what is going on with the old Kanye West scenario, because they've now cancelled the entire festival. The Wildest Festival has been cancelled because Kanye West has been refused entry to Britain, which is all very well. But as I've said before, then refuse entry to Britain to everyone who's an anti-Semite. And that would include anybody coming on a small boat, I would have thought. This from Mr. Woodward. Mike, what the climate scammers won't explain is why nature has made humans in such a way that they breathe out 9,900% more CO2 than they breathe in. Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's coming up to nearly 2 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. This is the Mike Graham Show. Let's get some headlines, some news with that miscreant, Edward Hughes.
Good morning, Hughes, and I've just got one thing to say. I'm back, baby. I'm back. I had a lovely trip to the Caribbean. Fiona and... I was able to relax and take some great photos. It's good to be back on the Mike Graham team. Thank you to the HR department. Here is your news. Britain wakes up to another sparkling day. Lazy junior doctors have kicked off a 6-day strike because nothing says caring profession like leaving thousands of patients in limbo while the NHS racks up another few billion in disruption costs. Brilliant timing, as always. In entertainment news, Kanye West has been banned from entering the UK, which has conveniently cancelled Wireless Festival. Nobody seemed to mind when Keir Starmer invited a terrorist leader to number 10 recently. You couldn't make it up. Oh, and globally, everyone's holding their breath over Trump's latest fiery threats to Iran, while Keir Starmer pleads for peace and tries not to let the Yanks use our bases for anything too explosive. Elsewhere, it's hit 25 degrees Celsius, the warmest day in 6 months. So enjoy the sunshine before the inevitable rain returns to remind us who's really in charge. What a time to be alive. Pass the tea. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers. That's right. I really love my Tiger Light.
I don't know what's got into him. I really don't. Edward's just sent me a photo of his... What? What? Where did he get my number, says Rod. I'm not happy. Well, I hope that he's not hacking into the system for people's numbers. That's not right at all. Fiona McLeod's back tomorrow. I've made my peace with the HR people. They've said that's fine. We're going to put Edward on leave. I think he needs to take a step back and consider his position, I think would be the best way to put it. So he'll be taking a leave of absence. And we'll see what we can sort out, because I'm not having it. I'm not having him being all cocky like that. I don't think that's right. Somebody's ringing the buzzer, is that? Yeah, I know. Maybe we should stick it somehow. We can't do it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, absolutely right. So we've got a couple of things to do between now and the end of the show. We can speak to Siobhan White very shortly, but let's have a quick look at a press conference that happened yesterday with Nigel Farage and Siobhan talking right here. Have a look.
The first duty of government is to keep its citizens safe. How do you feel the Prime Minister is faring, both in terms of people crossing the Channel and also our defence more broadly? And also, if I may, Nigel Farage, you want to be Prime Minister. If you were Prime Minister now, would you give America permission to use British air bases for attacks on civilian infrastructure in Iran that the US President is threatening? Thank you.
There's a lot there you've just asked. Frankly, the people that are ultimately guilty for Rhiannon's murder are the British government. It's the British government who, despite massive public demand for something to be done, have seen absolutely nothing done. A previous government that promised they'd stop the boats, this government that said they would smash the gangs. I very fairly asked what is plan B. There clearly isn't one of any kind at all. And so I personally blame the government. I think you feel the same way, don't you?
Starmer and the government, yeah.
Yeah, well, you couldn't get a clearer answer than that.
That's Rhiannon White's mother, of course, who's called Britain a laughingstock. She blames Keir Starmer over her daughter's murder. That was her talking with Nigel Farage yesterday at a Reform press conference, because despite the fact that she's written to Keir Starmer, and when last time we spoke to Siobhan, she told us that she hadn't even had an answer from Downing Street. She's had some kind of mealy-mouthed response from, I think, somebody in the Home Office, some kind of pen pusher. But let's talk to Siobhan White now and find out how things are. Siobhan, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. You got good coverage of Daily Express today. You were quoted as saying that the nations such as the US and Australia are better at stopping the illegal arrival of small boats, but Labour just lets them in. We obviously know what happened to your daughter, who was attacked brutally by a man called Deng Majek, who laughed and danced after stabbing her to death, and a terrible, awful crime. One of, sadly, very many. I mean, we learned today there's a story about a Somalian athlete who came over to run with Mo Farah, who's now up in court on a charge of sexually assaulting a teenager. You know, it's happening all the time. When we last spoke, Siobhan, you said that you were disappointed in the Prime Minister and also in Jess Phillips and others who haven't ever responded to any of your letters. Have they responded yet?
No, Absolutely nothing at all. No reply to an email, no apologies, nothing.
That is dreadful. And you're going, I think, on a Pink Ladies protest. Is it this month to Downing Street, or is it
Yeah,
June?
24th.
24th of April, yeah. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's basically, obviously, for safety of women and children. And it's to hopefully get a letter into 10 Downing Street. Will he respond to it? I don't know, but it's worth a try. He's got to keep fighting, and I just feel like he's not listening at all. Doesn't care. So yeah, there's a lot of support, a lot of fighting. I think it's going to continue to be a lot of fighting to get heard.
Exactly. And I think, and I take my hat off to you, but I think that's what you have to do, because in the end, what these politicians love is a sort of international crisis. I mean, he's off to the Middle East this morning to go and talk to some people there. I don't know why he's bothering, because what happens in the Middle East is got nothing to do with him. We don't have any role in it, it would seem.
This is the thing though, Mike. He's off. I mean, where was it? China. He's been off to America. He's going off to all these countries, but he's not actually focusing on the country that he bloody lives in. This is what's confusing. Everybody else but his own people. It's ridiculous.
These young men, unaccompanied men who come to spend the rest of their lives in this country, and who very often commit crimes against our young women.
Yeah. He's allowing these illegals in. So yeah, he's guilty. Yes, I blamed the government before, and Starmer, but again, as I said before, and I will continue to say, he said that he would stop this. He hasn't. What he needs to do is take responsibility, stop putting all these other countries before his own. We are a laughing stock. Britain is being laughed at from everyone. Every country in this world is laughing at us. Starmer is a joke.
And also, so is Shabana Mahmood, I'm sorry to say, because as the Home Secretary, she hasn't changed.
From her either.
She hasn't changed anything. All she's done is she's handed another cheque to France, 16 million quid, I think, a couple of weeks ago, because they can't find a new deal where the French don't bother doing anything, they don't bother stopping anything, but we pay them millions and millions, hundreds of millions of pounds.
They've already been paid so many billion, and they're still allowing it. So now she's paying another 16 million. Is this just to promote, just come to England? We'll just give you more money. Don't worry about it. It's I can't. I think it's just she's just a joke as well. They all need to get their heads banged together.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back to the time when your daughter was working at that hotel, did you have concerns at that time about where she was working and how safe it was?
I did. Of course I did, as every mother would. But she assured me that it was okay, she was safe. And the shortness of that journey was literally a minute to the station, 2 minutes on a train, and then literally 5 minutes to my house. In there, Serco were meant to be doing their jobs of, keeping an eye on these men, etc., etc. But again, they're to blame. Serco are to blame. The hotel's to blame, because they allowed these scumbags to go outside, do drugs, wander the streets, drink, etc., etc. Rihanna didn't really say a lot. She just went to work, came home. She spoke to a couple of, maybe a group of 5 there. And she never gave me any concerns. The night before it happened, there was obviously an incident with a drunken migrant over broken biscuits. It was sorted. He apologised. That was it. The next day, God forbid, she never came home.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about that day before, and it was an awful, horrible day. I mean, is it something that goes on in your mind all the time, like that day and what happened?
Yeah. I mean, he was sentenced in January, but I still watched the CCTV footage and was there something I could do? Because obviously in the police station, we watched a full kind of like 2-3 hours of it. And I still think, was there something I could do? I was literally 10 minutes away. I could have got to her in 10 minutes, etc., etc. I've only just stopped watching those videos now because I think I was driving myself insane.
Yeah.
But every day, I don't sleep. I'm lucky I've got a strong family and a group of friends. But I feel guilty for being happy. I feel guilty for laughing. I feel guilty because I couldn't protect her. And people don't see this side of it, Mike. All they want to do is say, well, she deserved it. She worked there. She had blue hair. Her mother should have protected her. Now, all these trolls can say all this, but they don't see the behind the scenes of the heartache that we're still carrying and the heartache that we're fighting.
Yeah, well, people who say things like that are just scum.
Irrelevant. They're irrelevant to me. I don't get angry at them anymore,
Yeah.
but it's not about being Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, etc. It's not about politics to me, and I've told them and I've told everybody, it's about getting a platform for my daughter's name, a platform for her story, because I need to keep fighting. I'm her mum.
Of course you are. And also an acknowledgement from the bleeding government that they should have stopped it from happening. It should have not. Yeah. It should have never been allowed to happen. And
this is what I said. Starmer's ignored me twice. Jess Phillips, as I said before, she spoke to my girls for 30 minutes, probably a month or so. I can't remember, after Rhiannon passed. Promised them everything, nothing. This is a woman that promotes safety, etc. for women and children. My local MP, Matt Weston, again, an absolute bollocks, excuse my French, didn't bother with me and then contacted me as I named and shamed him. Well, he's been ignored. I'm not interested.
No, it's rotten. The whole thing is rotten. And they need to accept that they've failed miserably and they've failed you.
I mean, we've got Alex
failed
Norris
us.
contacted me to go down for an interview, a meeting, etc., etc. I wanted to bring my friend, Ryan Bridge, who founded Razor Colours. And then 2 days before I was due to go, I got an email to say basically Ryan wasn't welcome. So I asked him, what's the criteria for people coming? Because he's my friend, he's my moral support.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a case-to-case basis. I said, well, I'm sorry, I won't be dictated to.
Yeah.
And I could have taken anybody, Mike. I could have taken a family friend, family member, a friend. But the minute they said, no, hold on a minute, you're not going to dictate to me. There's enough of this going on in this government. So I refuse to go until they can give me the full explanation as to why.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if you ever got to meet Jess Phillips, what would you say to her?
I'll be honest, I don't think I want to meet her. I think I'd be too angry. I would tell her that I despise the woman. Where was she? Why did she promise my girls this help and she gave nothing? So no, I would be happy not to ever meet the woman.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Don't blame you at all. Well, let's talk again before the 24th, and let's see what we can, what pressure we can put on, if any, to try and get them to at least open the door to you and to just let you in and talk to the Prime Minister.
Just acknowledge they've got the emails. Do you know what? I could send a half-hearted apology. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I just want to look that man in the face and would I see guilt? Probably not, because the next day he'll be off doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. He's a very odd person. He doesn't appear to have any emotion whatsoever.
I can't stand him, and I am very, very open, and I would tell him that I don't like him. But again, my concern is my children, my grandchildren, other families, God forbid, have to go through this. People that have not, these names of these people that have been attacked need to be put up onto a board, shoved in front of his and previous government's faces and say, look, this is what's happening. It needs to stop. Would you feel the same if it was yours? I mean, like these lefties attacking us. But you say to them, would you have them in your home? And they're like, oh, well, I haven't got room.
Yeah.
Well, no, if you're that concerned about these bloody migrants, you look after them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Why should we be paying for them as well? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's shocking. Siobhan, listen, great to see you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And we'll talk again, I'm sure, very soon. Siobhan White, mother of Rhiannon White, who tragically, in incredibly awful circumstances, was murdered by an illegal migrant when she was looking after them in the hotel in which they were staying. absolutely awful stuff. Difficult to imagine what Siobhan's been going through, since the killing of her daughter. Just dreadful, absolutely dreadful. Now, coming up, as we've been doing for the last week and a half, we will be moving over to UK Live at 9:30. This show finishes, and we invite you over to join our burgeoning new channel, where we're going to be carrying a lot of other shows in the near future. It is called UK Live. If you look for UK Live online on YouTube, you'll find it. It should, if you're listening and watching on the Substack, you should be able to just keep watching and listening, and it should automatically switch over to it. And we will play you a couple of funny clips actually after the news at 9:30. And we will take calls as well. If you're on Substack, you will be able to find a method of doing so. We took a couple yesterday. We can take some more today. Also, we'll be doing Pooch's Pooch, I think, on that side of the divide as well. Because right now we're going to speak to Joseph Robertson, who's joined us for the first time on the Mike Graham Show. Joseph, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. You're here from CPAC.
That's right, yeah.
Explain what CPAC is, so people can know.
Yeah, so CPAC is a conservative conference in America that's been happening for a long, long time, coming up for 40 years over there. And basically, we're bringing it to the UK for the first time.
Okay.
So coming over in July.
Okay, and so will that be associated with CPAC in America? Is it the same kind of thing, or is it just an offshoot of it?
An umbrella. So there's lots of there's a couple of international ones that have already happened. Japan's done one, Poland's done one, Hungary's done one, but for some reason they've never done one in the UK, which seems to be the most obvious place to come.
It is really, isn't it? It's quite surprising because Liz Truss is a big supporter of it, isn't she? She was over there in the most recent last couple of weeks, I think.
Yes, a couple of weeks ago in Dallas, she was on the main stage announcing it, and there's team of about 6 of us behind the scenes as well, working hard on it. So,
and is it a kind of? Would you describe it as a sort of right centre, or right of centre right, I should say? Kind of organisation.
I'd say conservative in the best possible sense. That means actually conservative, which
not like the Conservative Party.
Not like the Conservative. Well, some of the Conservative Party will definitely be joining us there, but we'll see how many of them. Step up to the plate. It would be lovely to see many of my friends in the Conservative Party there. But it's broadly not party political. So, we're looking across the board and we're hoping that people from both Reform and the Conservative Party will join us.
And it's a kind of a talking shop in a way, isn't it? It's not about any particular policy formation or any particular sort of hard line, you must agree with this or you can't come. I presume there's a lot of different ideas that you'll have different speakers.
Yeah, so it's a melting pot, really. I mean, we do want to look at stuff that people have been talking about a lot, but maybe haven't had the chance to talk about properly, because obviously there's a big debate over immigration, all those things, and I'm sure they'll be at the top of the register. But we want to go into stuff that isn't talked about as much: energy security, AI, the future of technology, all that kind of stuff. And it's also an opportunity for a lot of companies, professionals to come and actually talk about these ideas with potentially the future policymakers of this country.
Sure.
So,
it's interesting because I was talking to Steve Baker yesterday, who was in, and I was saying, he got criticised quite heavily by a lot of people who thought he was a really, promising right-wing Tory MP who might at some point even become a leader of the party. But then he got a job offer in the cabinet, not quite in the cabinet, but as a minister, and he took it and he said, you can rebel all you like, but in the end, it's better to be inside the tent, if you like, rather than outside the tent. And I said, but you got criticised for kind of joining the machine, if you like, and then kind of having some of your policies watered down to the point where, the Conservatives, as we know, up until, the last election, really, had become quite wishy-washy on a lot of things like net zero, on immigration particularly, and, just, as you say, very unconservative in terms of what they should have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, the big angle on this, I think, takes it out of all our infighting and all the perspective on the UK is the fact this is an international conference.
Yeah.
And, my friends in America, I go out there a lot. They're very, very concerned about the way the UK is heading across the board, and they want to help. They really do want to help. But obviously the way they help is the important thing. They don't want to be strong-handed about it. But coming here and showing their support, showing that, we really do have a free speech crisis in this country, that there is international outrage. And it's not just America. We've got friends in Europe coming, we've got people from South America coming. probably Asia as well. I mean, you know, the whole world is looking at the UK and really thinking, what the hell happened?
Yes.
And,
well, including us. By
including
the way.
us, but we're sort of in the middle of it, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it is nice to go and get that international perspective, and that's what we're hoping to
So
bring
will you have a
back.
lot of speakers from around the world as well?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
It's going to be completely international. And if you look at other CPACs around the world, that tends to happen. You know, you've got the American administration go to Hungary, they go to Poland. You know, we had in Dallas, there was a delegation from South Korea, from, you know, all over the world. So, and we do have a lot of natural allies out there. You know, you think of the Malays and the Bakalis and the other sort of parts of the world that maybe we aren't used to hearing from.
Right.
And they have some very interesting stuff going on, you know. You just
And
look
we've
at-
seen, it seems to me anyway, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of a move towards more conservative politics in a lot of European countries, you know, parties which are more on the right than the left. But we seem to be going a bit backwards in this country. I mean, you know, Reform have had a massive kind of head start, I suppose, on everybody, and they've been doing particularly well. People are now saying, are the polls really going to hang in there? Are they going to do as well in the local elections as they think? I think they are. But the rise of the Greens really puzzles me.
Yeah.
I find that really quite difficult to take because I was listening to somebody the other day who was saying that people were ringing into LBC and saying why they like the Green Party and why they're going to support it. And it's kind of deranged stuff, you know. We've got a woman up in Scotland today, or yesterday, from the Greens saying we want to do away with prisons. So we want to do away with borders, prisons, drugs, you know, illegal drugs, everything's going to be legalised. You know, it's just, I don't understand what level of intellect you have to think that any of that would be a good idea.
Yeah, well, not a great amount, I would say. I mean, the problem we've got is, like you said, sustaining momentum for 2 years, and that's why I think things like this are going to be so important, because it's carrying that energy forward. And, you know, every time that I talk about this stuff, particularly with the Greens, I say we've got to start using the C word again, we've got to start talking about communism.
Yeah.
Because this is what they do. It's a gradualist push. You know, and what they're very good at doing is it doesn't always need to be revolution. Sometimes it's the long game.
Yeah.
And they're very good at maintaining momentum. We all remember momentum. That was how Labour won. And, you know, we as Conservatives, as the centre-right, whatever we want to call ourselves, we have to start getting used to doing that as well.
And in America, for example, the Conservative movement is different to what it is here, isn't it? You know, because you've got what they call the MAGA Conservatives, and then you've got the others who are maybe not quite so friendly towards Trump. Break that down. How does that sort of compare to what we have?
Well, it's very different because obviously you've got, you know, nearly 12 years of Trump now, and this is what happens when you get a long-term government. There's always fractures, there's always rifts, there's always people thinking about who's going to be the next leader. That's what's happening in America right now. There's this big debate over internationalism versus protectionism, whether or not they want to look more at their own domestic policy as opposed to being, you know, the world's police and all that kind of thing. And that's breaking down into a couple of different sort of factions, I'd say, but that's what happens over time. We saw it in the Conservative Party as well. You know, you have 14 years of rule, and then you do start to recycle a leader every few weeks, it felt like.
Yeah.
And obviously that's what we've got to get better at, is unifying and actually sticking behind somebody. And I think right now we're at the beginning of that cycle.
And sticking behind a policy as well, because the Tories, it seems to me now, I mean, I think it was earlier this week, Nigel Farage just accused Kemi Badenoch of just being a sort of copycat and saying, you know, looking at Robert Jenrick and going, oh, actually, I quite like what he's saying now.
Yeah.
And the Tories are kind of very much despised by my audience anyway, because my audience says, look, when they had 14 years, they betrayed us over Brexit, they betrayed us over immigration, and quite frankly, we don't trust them. And I don't know if they'll ever get that trust back.
Well, the problem for the Tories is that they, you know, they could reinvent within a few years if they did it right, but there's so much brand baggage, there's so much, you know, follow-on. It's just the word Tory itself. Whereas in America, what people tend to do is, yes, they infight, but they're all in the GOP, they're all in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so, although it can be a little bit acrimonious, you all know you're going to vote for the same president at the end of the day. And it's funny because even Vance was a never-Trumper at one point.
Yeah.
You know, there were a lot of people in the party.
Yeah.
You know, RFK
well, look at Marjorie
Jr.
Taylor Greene, who's now on the outs,
Right,
who's now
exactly.
calling for Trump to resign.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, just 6 months ago, she was telling old Emily Maitlis to F off.
The thing you find in America is that when it comes around to election time, they do tend to come back together again. There's always that feeling of, well, this is going to be better than what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And we've got to soul search over here and actually get to the point where we are united in that sense, I think. And in it, right now, it appears to be that Nigel is the man for the job.
Yeah. I mean, and where would your movement be, say, CPAC in the UK, on the uniting of the right? Because that's a conversation that a lot of people either want to have or don't want to have, depending on which side of the divide they're on.
Well, we're all about uniting ideas. So again, it's not about party politics. What we will do is we'll represent all of what we see to be the most electable politicians. But at the same time, what we really want is bigger ideas, people talking about the stuff that other people aren't talking about. And if the headlines are dominated 24/7 by the Iran crisis, by immigration, there needs to be a place that you can talk about all the other big things: AI, crypto, future technology, education, all these key topics that maybe 4 or 5 years ago were a lot more interesting to talk about and have just been replaced by constant rolling headlines. So we want to give people a space to talk about their ideas, because we hear a lot about policy, but we don't always hear about the ideas that underpin them. And I think that's what we can do really differently.
Okay. And can people buy tickets for it yet? Or
it's all live now. So you can go to CPAC's main website, and there's a section for British CPAC on there.
Okay.
So CPAC is Conservative Political Action, and we're doing it as a conference. So obviously PACs in the US mean something slightly different. They're committees.
Because it's sort of a fundraising.
They're like a political action committee. So, but we're doing it as a conference. Obviously, we don't have the same kind of PAC structures in the UK as we do in the US. And I think if people want to go and get a cheap ticket now, they're on early bird offer, so £75 for the 3 days, which is very reasonable. In London, at the Intercontinental by the O2.
Okay.
And it's going to be great fun. There's going to be about 2,500 people there. Just be a place to meet friends as well, and put some differences aside. I think that's important. I saw it in CPAC. There were people from all sides of the British Isle had gone out there to have fun in Dallas, and that's what we need to also bring back, is a bit of fun.
Yes, a bit of fun on the right wing, always good.
Absolutely.
Great, good to see you. Joseph Robertson, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, mate.
We'll be covering that, I'm sure, CPAC. I might even be there myself, you never know. It's coming up to just about 29 minutes past 9. We've got, I think, some super chats to do, have we, Pooch, perhaps? A couple of messages to bring out. Seaside Babe says we need to stop politicising everything and start politicising the things that matter. Little Red Rooster says the woke trip to the moon. And Andrea says, oh God, just on woke Sky News that Islamist Starmer is going to the Middle East to ensure permanent opening of the Strait. Seriously, this idiot is of no use whatsoever. A one-way ticket, hopefully. Well, yeah, but it won't be, will it? I mean, I don't know what he thinks he's doing. Jane says this, my parcel was propped up against the door on Monday. It said 6. I'll be onto Amazon if you haven't got it. Did you see a parcel on Monday? I don't think we did, actually. Maybe they put it up against the wrong door. Simon the Postie? Yeah. Yeah, well, we haven't... I mean, if it was there on Monday, that's only 2 days ago. We didn't see it. The Green Party, they've got dangerous ideas, says Seaside Babe. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So right now, it's time for us to say a cheerio to all of you for watching. Thank you very much indeed. Net zero, costly push, says Seaside Babe. So what you do now is you, if you're on the chat on YouTube, and thanks very much indeed for joining it this morning. Lots of very, very good comments being made. 151,000 subscribers now. Let's get it to 152 by tomorrow. 14 million views since January, which is not bad. Thanks to all our guests, Stephen Barrett, Johnny Gould, Mark Littlewood was here, Chris Morrison, of course, Siobhan White, the mother of Rhiannon White, and Joseph Robertson, who's just been talking to us about CPAC. So if you look on the chat, you will see a little prompt to go over to UK Live, where we will continue the conversation. We'll take a call if we have one, and also we'll play you Pooch's Pooch and a couple of other really, really funny little clips, hey? Oh, the poll result as well. We've got to do that too, yeah. So stay with us. Move over to UK Live. I haven't quite seen the prompt yet